don't have it printed anymore, because in case you just thanks.
And they wanted to do the.
Y'all bring her, she ain't what she used to be. I have, is that the, yeah, I think I have that.
Oh, okay, so
But let me send.
I wasn't sure we were gonna have. Okay.
Good, man. How are you? Good to see you.
Since it's a workshop.
Been well?
Summertime's over. Time to work.
Yeah, yeah. I feel you.
So if someone wants to
Okay,
watch,
so-
they're going to our website,
Yeah,
Hopefully
you're
this
gonna go to
is,
our social media page.
social media page.
We shall see.
100%. Are you aware that the other company bought a lot of coal here?
Are you?
No.
What I don't want to do is send you guys a cease and desist on Bush's interference with them. But my understanding is that's what's going on from talking to them.
What, okay, what, let me look into that. And I'll get back. Yeah, what's the issue?
Well, there was some, apparently some statements made to them about our funding coal. And some suggestions that we can use for
Well, that's cool.
Okay.
help them out there. See what they can.
Okay, let me look into it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right over there.
You wanna swap with me, if you're gonna
Yeah.
test things, you might be better off. Yeah. I'll just take it away.
Nope. kid.
April.
I just have to engage my calves.
No, it's gotta be me. Somebody call me. Don't laugh.
It's usually happen when I just like slide out of the way for something and then just go. Nothing like that. Tower of Babes that everyone gets.
I've already been threatened with violating, my term on, and conflict of interest because of my involvement with free speech. So you can imagine how it's like. They already threatened me. Thank you so much for your efforts.
Excuse me, it's 10 o'clock. I would like to call this meeting to order.
Excuse me, Mr. Pittman, I've asked our general counsel to call the meeting to order. Workshop.
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 Workshop, sorry.
Sorry, happy to do so. So 10 o'clock, calling the meeting to order. At this point, I guess there'll be the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll hand it over. So we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so for everybody, the
Excuse me,
reason-
Mr. Pittman.
if I
No,
can-
excuse me, Mr. Pittman. This is a board workshop.
This is
I
a
would like
workshop.
to ask you to sit down. I told you in their email that
Okay,
this is going to be a
understand.
board-run meeting, and I intend to stick with that. So please take a seat, and we can conduct this workshop in an orderly fashion.
I understand, Ms. Viola.
Please sit
So this
down.
board, this
Mr.
this
Pittman,
workshop meeting was called
please
before
sit down.
because of the stakeholders and the tenants.
No, Mr. Pittman, this is insubordination.
Michelle Cass, board member Michelle Cass Chapman talked to me and we agreed that we should have this workshop meeting because tenants, stakeholders, and people around the airport wanted to know what was going on. So this was supposed to be a briefing and a presentation for everybody involved. So instead of us just doing the meeting ourselves, it was to do it in front of the public. We haven't talked to you all in a while, so we wanted to let y'all
Mr.
know
Pittman,
a
this
state
is
of the
extremely
union.
inappropriate.
If-
Please
At
sit
this
down.
time, Mrs. Cass Chapman, can you please give the order of how things will proceed?
I think we need to talk. Right now. This-
Sure, I mean, I did call the workshop, and so I did not have a problem with Courtney starting it as
I think I need to fill you in on some things that have happened.
Sure.
I got an email about this, and we are the only two board members. So I think according to our meeting rules, if we agree on something, it goes forward. If we don't agree on something, it's a deadlock, and it doesn't go forward. I find some of what's been going on with staff to be highly inappropriate. I got the agenda, and it was 13 different staff presentations of clocking in, I don't know, 2 hours of us just sitting here, listening to staff with no materials, no briefing. That I find to be completely unacceptable. One would think that if staff is ready to stand up and talk for 10 minutes, they've prepared something, and that should be given to the board and frankly the public ahead of the workshop so that we can digest it, we can look at it, we can come prepared for questions. I take my fiduciary duties extremely seriously, and sitting here coming in cold to a meeting and being talked to for 2 hours is not how I do not find that acceptable as a board member. And
I hear
frankly,
you.
I don't find that acceptable for the general public who's walking in here not knowing what's gonna happen.
I hear you. And so the items on the agenda are,
We haven't approved the agenda.
I understand, thank you. So the items that I requested that we put on this agenda for a workshop was specifically done because we haven't met in so long, and because there are going to be questions, and because we do have things going on. So whether we do 10-minute presentations or not is fine. I don't particularly care either direction. But the purpose of this meeting isn't for anyone to be walking in blind. It was so that we could be caught up and brought up to speed on everything in the sunshine all at once. So I don't know.
disagree with that approach, and that is what I made extremely clear to staff. I know we can't talk outside of meetings,
Right.
but I made it extremely clear to staff that I was not willing to sit through hours of presentation with no preparation. That is what's called handling the board, controlling the flow of information. We walk in, we don't know what's gonna be said.
No, I understand
It's
that,
not
but-
appropriate. If
But
they
they
can
put
prepare
on
a
this
pres-
agenda what I asked them to put on.
And
They put
they-
on the agenda what I said, I want an update on the following things. Please have something ready, and I want it presented in front of the public so that we're all hearing it at the same time.
I don't
So-
believe that it's appropriate for that to be done in a way where we are
What would have
cold.
made this better for you?
If they would have done the briefing memos that I requested, and they said they were going to do, and then at the last minute said they were not going to do. And Mr. Pittman, I do have a question for you. On August 29th, you said that these briefing memos would be done so that I, as a board member, and Ms. Chapman as a board member, could be prepared to understand and be ready for questions. You said in an email that that was going to happen. Nothing happened. I followed up in an email and said, where are these? I'm not gonna be able to be prepared as a board member. And you, in the email, said, according to Attorney General guidance, the briefing memos were not going to be distributed. What Attorney General guidance was that?
Okay, so, may I answer? So, the reason why we didn't do memos based off the Attorney General guidance, the
What?
AGO,
What
Who-
guidance?
okay, it's in the AGO.
What
So the
guidance?
reason, I don't know about all
Specific.
that.
Can we do one at a time, please?
I asked a specific question,
I'm
I
trying
want
to
a
answer you.
specific
And
answer.
so the reason why we didn't do them, because we didn't want to lead the public. We didn't want the public to think that us as staff are trying to sway or do anything, put it in writing as in a memo to say that, hey, this is something we as staff have decided.
Mr.
So
Pittman?
so when I talked to Mrs. Cash Chapman, she wanted, and it's in the email, she wanted presentations. So instead of us doing a one-on-one presentation with the board members like we normally would do, she was like, hey, let's do it in the public, so that way everybody knows what's going on. So instead of it being the general presentation that we would do with board members in the conference room at the admin building, we wanted to do it here. And I agreed with her. I thought it was a great idea because we've been quiet too long. It was something staff
Okay,
was gonna
that's
do
enough.
anyway.
I
We was
didn't
gonna
ask,
do
Mr.
newsletters.
Pittman, this
and so
meeting is
here it
going to
is.
take forever if you go on.
The court reporter
on.
can only take one person at a time.
I appreciate that, so if I can just get answers to my question, only answers to my question, this will go a lot faster. So you don't have the specific attorney, you don't have a specific
I don't have
reason
memorized.
why you refused to do the thing you said you would do, which is to give the briefing memos
I
to
answered
be
it.
ahead of time.
I answered it. I said, that way I don't come off as
You didn't-
persuading
you
the
didn't give-
board.
you
I'm
didn't-
answering you.
Mr. Pittman, the format for these briefing memos was provided by general counsel. Do
For
you
a
think
board
it's
meeting.
appropriate, this, general counsel was well aware of the format of this meeting when he provided that outline. So you're saying that you have decided to practice law without a license and decide what's appropriate for the board to get and not get?
Okay, so I'm gonna respond to that. All right, so those briefing memos were for board meetings, and you all as a board have not accepted those documents, nor have given me the authorization to use said documents. And so, this is not a board meeting, this is a workshop, and looking at our policy, the only way that we could have this kind of forum legally is to call it a workshop, right? Because it's not an executive session, this is not a shade meeting, this is not a board meeting. So we call it a workshop, so we can do these presentations so the public knows what's going on at the airport.
Okay, we're coming down to a fundamental issue. Ms. Chapman was fine coming in here, as it seems, cold, not knowing what was going to be said, not having the ability to prepare. I specifically said I was not willing to have a meeting with that format. You decided to listen to one board member and not the other. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I decided to call the meeting because so Mrs. Cash Chapman didn't tell me to call the meeting. I was gonna do it anyway, and I was gonna do it as a State of the Union, right? To where I addressed, that's what I was trying to say earlier. We were gonna do newsletters, but then I was like, no, let's bring everybody in and let's talk and give a State of the Union address to let everybody know what's going on at the airport.
Mr. Pittman?
And so,
I think you've got a serious misunderstanding. You answer to the board. You don't tell the board what to do. Calling a
not-
meeting to say, I'm going to sit here and I'm gonna have a bunch of people come up and talk to you, and you just have to sit there and take it, is just not okay.
But he didn't do that. I asked him to call this workshop. The pure purpose of this workshop was to say, instead of us sitting in one meeting and then you two sitting in one meeting to be updated on everything, was to do it all at the same time so that we could have an open dialogue, because we can't do that any other place. So I
I-
apologize if you think that I was trying to do something, or if that we needed to prepare for something. The main goal was so that we could have a conversation and be updated on what is happening at the airport. We're now 9 minutes into the meeting, and we have done nothing except argue. So moving
Well, and
forward, I would like to know what would make this work for you, because I'm not gonna waste hours of my day while we go back and forth and argue.
Okay, and I have said, I believe it is inappropriate for staff to control information to the board in such a manner, where we don't have any ability to prepare ahead of a meeting, have don't even have copies of these presentations that apparently are gonna be made to us. That is not us doing our job as a board. I would have been perfectly happy to come in here with the briefing memos, or whatever version of the information ahead of time, so that I would know, hey, this is what's on the agenda, I've looked at the materials, they've been posted to the website so the public can also digest it and be able to come in and ask intelligent questions. That's been taken away from us, and I specifically asked for it. And I don't believe, and I think it would be more appropriate for us to reconvene this meeting in 10 days when we've had actually the information given to us. Because this is not, we can't just be papering over the governance issue at this airport. We can't just pretend that this is business as usual and that the board members not being kept informed is okay. And if we allow this to happen, we are telling staff, it's okay to ignore a board member, it's okay to not give them information after they told they were going to get it, and be handled, and I won't be.
I'm sorry that that's the experience that you have, because I feel like I have been asking questions throughout this process, and I've been getting answers, which is why apparently I felt more prepared to be here than you did.
Were you given
Um,
advanced materials on these presentations?
When I requested what was on what to be put on this agenda for today, when I requested what we deserve to have updates on, if I had questions about things specifically, I asked them specifically.
Did
So-
you get?
I don't have anything physical, no, I don't.
So you didn't get written materials to prepare for any of these topics ahead of time?
No, but I didn't feel like I needed them, because.
I did,
And I
and I
thank you.
wasn't
Thank
given
you for
them.
interrupting. Let me know
I'm-
when you're done.
I'm a little frustrated. I
I can sense that.
apologize for interrupting.
So let me ask you, you're comfortable, instead of just hearing what people have to say, with all of us here now, you're comfortable saying, we're sorry we wasted everybody's time, let's all go home because you didn't get papers ahead of time. I just want to be clear on what we're asking of everybody today.
That is my job, is to have oversight.
Do you typically
And-
get presentations in advance before they're presented to you?
If I'm presenting to a board, damn straight, I've worked for boards. They demanded materials at least a week in advance.
Well, I will let that be your decision. If you would like to tell everybody here that we've all wasted our time to be here today, then you do that.
I don't consider it a waste of time to be prepared. I consider it a waste of time to come and sit blindly.
You and I are not going to agree on this, because the way I see today's meeting, workshop, is that they present to us so that we can digest it and ask our questions, and then have another hopeful meeting at some point where we can make some.
Having to do all that
decisions.
cold and not have the ability to look at something ahead of time is not being prepared.
I've heard you. I've heard you loud and clear every time you've said it, so please make the decision if we're continuing with this workshop or if we're ending it.
Well, I think that's a pretty narrow way to look at things, that we have to do exactly what staff wants, or we can't talk.
It's not what staff wants, it's what I asked them to do.
And it's not what I asked them to do.
Right, so I'm giving you now the opportunity to make the decision on what you would like to do.
Well, maybe we can talk about things that we can both agree should be
Sure.
in this board, on the agenda.
So point of order, if we're going to amend the agenda, under workshop sections of the Florida statute, there needs to be good cause in order to amend the agenda. Hearing the back and forth, I would lean towards that there is good cause if given everything that's going on with the
authority to potentially amend the agenda, provided that there are certain topics that I think would be inappropriate for an agenda. So if we want to talk about airport operations, if we want to talk about those things from a workshop perspective, that would be acceptable. If there are governance questions, that would be acceptable. If there are decisions that would be required to come out of the workshop in any way, shape, or form, those things would not be acceptable topics. Anything added to the agenda would require public comment. Because we are adding something to the agenda, typically they would have an opportunity to comment. So I'm not saying you should or shouldn't amend the agenda, I just want to make a point of order, or point of information, excuse me, that would be the appropriate legal procedure to do so under Florida statute.
And if I may, nothing on the agenda requires a vote. Everything is just informational. So everything's neutral. So if anybody's worried about anything being combative, anything talking about anyone in a negative light, no. Everything's neutral and informative in nature, and nothing will be presented that requires a vote.
What would you be comfortable keeping on today's agenda?
I did get a copy of Terry Becker's executive summary, which was, I know, the only substantive information that was provided ahead of time. Although it was dated August 21st and we got it on September 2nd, which is concerning. I do have a list of questions for the auditor. I don't think it's necessary for them to read us their PowerPoint, but I am prepared to have a list of questions, and that same document is available to the public, so I don't think we're depriving the public of anything by skipping the presentation. That I would be comfortable with, and I think we need to talk about governance.
Point of information, if I may. My colleague is prepared to give an update on the forensic audit. The reason that information won't be circulated is because it is privileged information prior to the meeting. So we can give an update on that and a recommendation as to what needs to occur there. So.
Okay, I'd be prepared to talk about that as well, because there's a reason why that information wasn't circulated ahead of time.
Just for clarity of your comments, there's nothing precluding the executive director from having held a public meeting that's not, as a town hall meeting. In other words, Mr. Pittman could come into this conference room and provide an update to anybody who wants to come unilaterally, not as a noticed meeting necessarily.
Yes, Mr. Roberts, thank you. I do agree with that statement with the caveat that if it is a meeting of two board members,
Correct.
it would need to be consistent with the procedure set forth in public. So Mr. Pittman could open up a town hall anytime he wants, but if there are going to be more than one board member in present, it would need to be a meeting that was convened by a member of the board.
100%, and that's what I was trying to do. The problem in this situation, we don't have a chair, a vice chair, or a quorum to even vote in a temporary chair. And so, again, we're talking to Mrs. Cass Chapman. Like I said, this is something I wanted to do anyway, and we agreed that this would be a great opportunity to brief the public and to brief both board members. So if you look at the items, I'll bring them up on the screen so everybody can see.
Okay, I don't want to waste people's time,
I'm
Mr.
not-
Pittman.
I'm not,
Let's
so-
just stop there and let's work on what's going to be on the agenda.
That's what I was about to do, ma'am, to show you that
I
they didn't
think
need to have back.
I want to discuss that with Ms. Chapman. Because the agenda says what it says, we can read the items ourselves.
What else are you comfortable keeping for today? Just those two things?
Potentially, if we just received an update on the income statement. So I've got a couple of questions on budget issues.
And then this, I don't know where this is gonna fall under. We need our budget meetings done in September, and, I mean, clearly,
Well,
it's very clear the two of us don't talk outside of meetings here, because we're working it out in front of everybody.
Well, I think.
I feel very lost in a lot of this, and this is the reason why I called this, because I feel like I'm in left field, and we don't know what's going on. And I know that we have deadlines coming up, we have grant deadlines coming up, we have a lot coming up, and we can't do anything
Well,
So we need the,
well, I think
Budget
that's
meetings.
maybe something just to, like, let everybody, I mean, we both know, but staff knows, everyone at this table knows, but I think maybe the general public doesn't know. We have 2 board members, it's not enough for a quorum, we don't have a chair, so we,
we can
as a
quite literally
board,
do nothing
we
together.
can literally do nothing. We know, we have to wait for the governor to make at least one appointment for there to be a quorum. And I think there's maybe been I haven't directly been in contact with anyone at the governor's office. I have no idea how long that's going to take. Staff did circulate a letter for, I'm assuming you got a copy too, for us to sign to the governor's office saying, please, pretty please, make an appointment, because for the reasons you say, we have things as a board we need to be doing, and it's super frustrating, I'm sure, for everybody that we are unable to function as a board to do the things we're required by statute, by charter, oversight of the staff. We can't make any decisions, and it's an issue, and I wish I had an answer, but I don't. And I think maybe some that people might have come in here with questions like, what's gonna happen?
I think we all came in with those questions.
And at the end, that we have the same questions.
So point of order, if we would like to discuss further on that, there would need to be an addition to the workshop agenda, because governance would be considered a workshop item. You can talk governance, but it would need then to be opened up for public comment.
Okay.
But we're varying closely to that line of getting into substantive conversations without it being an agenda item on the agenda.
Okay, so I'd like to add governance. I think it's probably top of mind for a lot of people. Would you like to, do you agree with that?
I do, no, but we can't motion or vote on it, right? We're just
Well,
agreeing
if
that
it's
we're
the two of us,
In a
doing it.
workshop,
I'm not-
because,
I'm
yeah.
not trying to break the law today, so.
Just for information, in a workshop, right, if there's good cause, since we're not taking official action on any airport business, okay? If there's good cause to add an item, and as long as we open it to the public, okay, for additional comment or anything else, it can be added. The key is that we keep it to things that would fall under good cause at this point. The alternative is also you could hold a special meeting of the board where you could discuss these items as well. However, there would be no ability to take action on any of those items.
Right.
Can I make a suggestion that'll protect us all? Because in that situation, say one board member says put it on the agenda and the other board member says not to. That could come off as a vote, or if they both agree. So there's a section on here for board member comments at the end. So if they wanted to make whatever they wanted to say, they could say it in board member comments, and that way they don't have the burden of
Mr.
agreeing or
Pitt?
disagreeing.
Mr. Pittman, I think we should rely on our council.
That's, I'm asking.
I would prefer, given the situation, normally I would say that's probably an acceptable solution. However, given the numerous items from a governance perspective, where we have come from and where we're going in a positive direction, I feel it would behoove the agency to, if there are items we know we want to discuss, specific items, either on this agenda, asking for them to be added and citing the reason for the good cause to add them, or a separate meeting be convened with those specific items identified in advance.
I think that we should amend today's agenda for good cause, seeing as we won't have a quorum for, we don't know how long. It would be helpful if Ms. Leota and I could work out right now, moving forward, what the two of us will look like until we have a board.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, Mr. Roberts.
Perhaps that could meet the best interest of everything. One of the purposes, as is described up there, is to make a record. And some of the purpose of this is to memorialize what the airport's doing. That way, if it were the case, let's say there's a lowest common denominator of what both of the board members want to have on today's agenda, 3 items. They could do those 3 items. We could end the board meeting. We could end the workshop. And if Mr. Pittman wants to continue and make the record for the public that wants to stay and get an update on all these things, 139 audits, all these things, if Mr. Pittman can just stay and and make the same presentation to whoever wants to stay for it. That way, at least there's a record made, which is one of the purposes, I think we have, and a need that we have for an update on the items that are on the agenda.
Well, I think there's a glaring problem with that. Not that they're, not that the board, such as it is, with just the two of us, or the public don't deserve information. I think they do. I think the problem with us not getting this information, or the public getting the information ahead of time, is to being able to ask critical questions. And I think it creates a false sense of completeness that it's okay for staff to just put out the version they want with nobody having any advance notice of what's going to be said, be able to ask good questions. I mean, that is just bad governance, and I don't want to have a bad example of something that it's coming off the history that we have had. I think if we, erring on the side of caution and having the best controls we can is what we should be doing.
So you would be more comfortable if we had Courtney and his team send all of us, or send the two of us, all of the presentations. In doing this again, how much time do you think, to digest and have your questions asked and answered before we can meet?
Well, that's a little bit of a unknown, because one, we have to have at least 10 days notice.
Because I'm sure we can
for a
get
workshop.
all of those presentations sent to us no later than this afternoon if they were prepared to.
But
give them today.
the minimum notice period to be able to do a workshop would be ideal. But that assumes that we get the information immediately, have time, maybe there's some follow-up questions like, hey, when I show up to this, here's some things I want to make sure that you're ready to talk to address, like, as for the staff, not you, sorry. But like, for me to have the ability, for you to have the ability to say, I've looked at this, I have these follow-up questions, be prepared to talk about them at the meeting. That's how it should work. And assuming that that happens, I'd be prepared to have the meeting as soon as possible. But if I'm not given information, can't do my job.
Okay, I think we might be heading in toward the governance conversation, so I have a
Yeah.
feeling that we have to open it up for public
So-
comment to add this to our agenda.
Is there consensus amongst the two members that there would like to be an additional item added for governance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And
let's
so,
put it at the top.
okay, so, so we can get the agenda situated, we'll add governance as number one. Is there consistency there?
Yes.
Okay, and that will require, public comment. Is there a second item that the board, or excuse me, the members are comfortable with?
I think some of the topics I wanted to talk about were specifically information related.
Okay.
I think that falls under governance. Like, I have a bunch of information requests that have gone
Okay.
unanswered.
Yes.
I mean, I also have questions that I don't expect answers for today, which is why I was saving them. So when we had our board comment, I would ask them, and then they would hopefully have answers for us by the next workshop or meeting. So
Yeah,
I'm
mine-
comfortable waiting on that stuff until
If there
the
are
same timeline.
record request informations, and I
Yeah.
want to be clear, are we talking about third-party record requests, or are we talking about board requests for documents?
Specifically, I'm talking about board requests for documents that I have made in my capacity as a board member going back to March that have not gotten answered.
Okay, those would go under a governance
Okay.
question.
And I'm not talking about getting into the substance of what
Correct, we would
Does
not
that-
talk about the substance of those items.
Right. Procedural.
Commissioner, but yes, we would. You can talk about the process around delivery and what's going on. That would be,
I'd also like to talk about outside counsel coordination, because I think that might be an issue.
is that,
What do you mean?
It's a little unclear to me and this is, my understanding is all counsel works for the board, not staff. So that would be aviation counsel, outside, general counsel office. And I'd like to discuss if we're having proper coordination of what that should look like.
I mean, I feel like that falls under governance as well.
We could, I would think probably we could get under governance as well. I don't, most of these items, Ms. Leo, it sounds like are gonna be governance related. And we can open that up, and if there's a need to
Okay.
add an item, we could probably do so.
All right, okay, well, if maybe then instead of getting into subtopics, we'll do it the other way. We'll do governance as a top line topic, and if you're like, hey, that's looking like it needs to be something special and different, we can address it then.
And there was previously, it sounded like agreement on the financial audit presentation and the forensic audit update. Are those still?
Yes, so I'm good with both of those. I think we want to hear the presentation on the forensics. We don't have any documents on that ahead of time. And the Cherry Beckert, potentially we could, I don't know if Cherry Beckert wants to go first, so we can let them go if they need to.
Okay. And again, I apologize to the board members, but just to keep it moving along, are there, is there, and I'm just gonna run down through the list if that's acceptable to the board members? The FDOT audit update, would that be something you'd like to discuss or defer?
I would like to defer everything else, because I'm not prepared.
So I look to the other board member, is there an agreement to defer, in which case, Mr. Pittman, to Mr. Roberts' point, there is nothing that prohibits an executive director under statute of holding a town hall to discuss items. So if one board member would like to stay, that is perfectly acceptable. Since this was noticed, both board members can stay. I will say,
Well, to be clear, though, if there's a town hall situation where information is given cold to an audience, I don't think that should preclude staff having to give the same briefing memos and be prepared to answer board questions about it at a later meeting.
yeah, as a member of the board, you are entitled, obviously, to information requests from folks, and we can get into this in the governance if you'd like, but nothing would preclude a board member from requesting the materials, et cetera, and requesting that the items be put on the agenda for a later date. And if there is only one board member present at a continuing workshop and not at least two, and frankly, this will be governance, with the governor appointments, it would probably behoove board members to ensure that there is another workshop when board members are appointed, or actually a meeting, to go through these items as well.
And that is.
That would be council's recommendation.
And that is part of why I think I'm being so, let's face it, strident about this. What we do now is setting a precedent for what we think is appropriate for what the new board members are going to step into. And I don't think it's appropriate to say, new board members, it's okay to just come into a meeting and not have any idea what's gonna happen. They should have some materials to look at.
I hear you, and we're not going to agree because the purpose of this is very different in my head from what you're seeing. So that's fine. I'm not here to make anyone uncomfortable. You have just as much authority as I do. If you're uncomfortable with it, we don't talk about it.
The only other one that there seemed to be consensus on today, which would need to be added, was a brief update to the financials, income statement, balance sheet, which I think was circulated, which is not on the agenda. So that would need to be added. So, for clarity, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4 agenda items, which, if there's consensus, we'll need to open up each one for public comment. The first would be, was there consensus to do the audit items first to allow those?
I think we should.
Yeah,
Okay.
Cherry Becker first, yeah.
But we don't need public comment on that, right? Because it's already-
Correct. It was a notice, and the presentation materials were posted, I believe, the audit, correct. So that would be first, and then I would recommend a forensic audit update, because it kind of ties.
Okay.
Would be 2, and then I'll leave it to the board, governance or income statement, whichever the board members would like to put third and fourth.
Do you want to just stick with income, so we do all the financial stuff, and then we can work out all the governance stuff before we end?
That makes sense.
Okay. So at this point, what we would do is we would proceed with the agenda, items 1, 2, throwing in 3, the income statement and the financials would need public comment, as they were not previously added to the agenda, and then there could be a discussion on those. And then the same thing with 4, there would be public comment on the governance section before there would be a substantive discussion.
What about general public comment?
Because this is a workshop, there typically isn't a general public comment, because all the information would have been posted. Let me rephrase, there would have been public comment on the individual items, but as those items are potentially being deferred, and if this goes to a town hall and not a workshop, that would be up to Mr. Pittman to decide, because we're no longer in a workshop setting, we would then be in a town hall setting, and that would be up to Mr. Pittman in his capacity as executive director as to whether or not to take public comment on those items.
And I think just to be clear, if we're gonna go into a town hall type of situation, it probably makes more sense to just wrap up the workshop first. Specifically, like if council wants to stay or go, I think that's up to them. Also, I don't think we need to be taking minutes for the court reporter for a town hall.
I have a feeling that was the purpose of doing the town hall, was to have it on record.
Well, I think the big part of having a meeting with notice and materials posted to the public, which is actually a statutory requirement, is so that there's actually meaningful transparency to the public and oversight, and we don't have those materials. And again,
So you would prefer public record, or
if we're going to have something on the record, I want it to be something
During the
where the
workshop.
public has had a meaningful opportunity to have transparency into what the public agency is doing and be able to ask intelligent questions, which is not going to happen today.
okay. So it sounds like you're more comfortable with not having a court reporter here, should we move toward a town hall, and to save that for when we have our workshop addressing the same listed items, yes?
Right, with properly prepared materials,
Okay.
notice to the public and board members, and do it the right way.
Question, just a point of order. How would the people that can't be here today get that information?
It
if
should
it's
be
not-
posted to the website when there's written materials, just like any other meeting.
May I ask a question of council? Since it's a town hall meeting, well, actually, it's a State of the Union meeting, and the board has nothing to do with this is my meeting. And if I want a court reporter there for my meeting to address the public and let them know the state of the airport, and if I would like to, for the people that's not here, and if I would like to share it for the people that missed it, so I want it recorded, that is a total separate situation. So for example, if I go on behalf of the airport and talk to the county commissioners, they record what I say. So what would be the difference in this scenario, just so I could capture this information for others to disseminate? Nothing that I'm saying at the State of the Union is something that the public shouldn't be made aware of. We're a public-facing airport. And so I think that would be my prerogative in that instance.
So if I may, the answer to your question, Mr. Pittman, would be there is nothing that would prohibit you from doing so unless the board directed you otherwise, and the board does not have quorum to make those decisions. So in this situation, you have the ability to make that decision. You have the decision to make that decision, and obviously with input and comment from your board members. But absent a quorum, that would fall within the scope of your decision making.
Thank you.
Right, I think it would be a waste of money, and I'm worried about the false sense of perception that this is somehow being done the right way, and I don't think it is. And so I want to avoid spending money, having the court reporter take down something when the public doesn't even know what's going to be said or be able to adequately respond to it, let alone the board members. So it's more of a philosophical objection, but I understand that as executive director, you can spend the airport's money that way you see fit right now.
Thank you.
So if I may, I think we're at agenda item 1, which is the financial audit presentation. Would the board like to open this up for public comment? Given the back and forth on a lot of things here, I think it would be wise to at least give the opportunity for public comment on these items as we go through with them. There may be none, there may be some, but I would caution the board, given the back and forth here this morning, to not open up these items for public comment.
I think we should, I mean, again, the purpose of me calling this workshop was specifically for this, for information and for any discussion that needed to take place, so
Do we have a representative from Cherry Becker here?
Yes.
Yes, okay, I have a list of questions.
So, point of order,
Sorry.
I apologize. If you were to open it for public comment, you would usually do that prior to board questions, presentations, et cetera. The presentation materials were prepared and I believe posted in advance for this item.
Mhm.
So it would be more routine if the board would open it up for public comment first.
Does the presentation?
prior to the
come first?
presentation?
Yeah. but-
I apologize.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
The presentation would come first, public comment, board
I
questions.
see.
I see.
My apologies.
Um, I mean, this slide deck was posted to the website or not?
Yes, it was.
Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, I think actually, I guess I disagree with you. I mean, I think public probably has some comments that they'd like to make on all of these topics. I mean, ours will be consistent. So I would like to go ahead and speak with our auditors and then have public comment.
There would be nothing prohibiting the board members, if there's consensus, to do a general public comment on these items, these 2 items. And then, if you want to go through the presentation, that would be fine. However, again, I caution on items, what will be 3 and 4, income statement and governance, there must be individual public comment. So-
Okay, well, maybe we can do a general public comment after we get through the first 2, because they're related. And we don't know what the financial one, the forensic one's gonna be.
Sure.
And that might, so, because who knows, maybe something in the audit, in the second one will answer people's questions on the first one.
That's fine.
All right. So I guess we're ready for you.
So is your preference that I run through these slides? So look back up. These are, again, I'm Jeff Steichen with Cherry Becker.
So you can sit here if you like.
Oh, sure.
These are required communications under professional standards to those who are charged with governance, which is 2 remaining board members. I don't need to run through it per se. I can go very quickly because I'm very aware of people's interest level in these slides.
Well, I think they've been provided to everybody, so I just dive right into the questions.
Okay, great. And just before we start, I will say I'll take responsibility for this getting too late. I did draft it. Sometimes I try and draft things myself, just thinking it'll be faster in reviewing it. And I should know better. I can't type and I can't spell. And Linda caught a little typo on slide 13, and it took me a few days to get it back to herself. I'll take responsibility for being a little late on that.
Okay, so it wasn't finalized August 21st?
The date of the audit report is August 21st. The date I signed the audit opinion was August 21st, so that was the date we used for the presentation.
Okay, so, all right.
But the edit was made after that.
Yeah, the edit, well, again, Linda's sharp eyes, it was something silly. I think I tried to write of, and I wrote like or something like that. She caught it, and I was out of town, sent it to the client. It took me a few days to get it back to her.
So everything was pretty much finalized August 21st?
That was the date we signed your audit opinion, which is, the date that we're caught up to subsequent events, the date we take responsibility for the financial statements through, the
Okay.
date management gives us their representations that we rely on to sign off, saying they haven't withheld anything from us or misled us in any way.
Okay. All right, I find it a little concerning that, the full audit report has not been presented to the board. all that we have seen is this slide deck.
Well, the financial statements are available. I didn't bring a hard copy with me. There's one on my computer, but yeah, but they should be available, and they've probably been submitted to the Auditor General, to stop the clock. I'm running on that, as well as Department of Financial Services. So it's been filed.
Okay, I would like a copy. All right, so I guess, okay, so it says you issued a clean opinion. Did you consider whether an emphasis of matter disclosure was needed for liquidity, governance, environment, subsequent events?
We did not become aware of any material subsequent events. Governance would probably be outside the scope of our audit. We don't make judgments on that. We give an opinion on your financial statements. Subsequent events, I'm not sure, but in terms of the financial statement opinion, and I'll try to be brief, there's a lot that goes into a governmental audit. So on the financial statements, we gave an unmodified opinion, which means that it's the highest level of assurance a CPA can lend to a set of financial statements. It means that your shareholders, your grantors, potentially your lenders can rely on the financial statements to accurately reflect the airport's financial position and the results of its operations as of 9/30/24.
Okay, so there was a statement on one of these slides.
I apologize too, I'm fighting a little bit of a chest infection.
Oh, there's definitely something going around.
Yeah.
So slide 6, it says that in planning and preparing the audit, you considered internal control over financial reporting, okay, et cetera, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the authority's internal control. So accordingly, do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of the authority's internal control.
No.
So that seems to say to me that you looked at the documents say what they say, but how they got created and if things were done, if there's weaknesses in internal controls, the audit's not going to.
So this is the second audit opinion we give, and this goes beyond the financial statement opinion. It's under governmental auditing standards. And we do two things under governmental auditing standards. It's not like an SEC engagement where you have to give an opinion on internal control. But the government auditing standards say that you have to obtain an understanding of internal control sufficient enough to plan your audit procedures. And effectively we do walkthroughs at a very minimum. We look through your cash receipt cycle, your disbursement cycle. One of my auditors actually looks to make sure you're following your process and signing off. If during that process we become aware of a control deficiency that rises to either the level of a material weakness, which means that a material error could occur, would not be prevented or detected and corrected, we would have to report that. Or a significant deficiency with something less in scope than material weakness, but it's defined as significant enough to warrant the attention of those charged with governance. So in obtaining an understanding of your internal controls, there were some errors. There were things we wrote up as control deficiencies, but nothing that we felt rose to the level, mostly for quantitative reasons, of a significant deficiency. So we did not write any internal control opinions or financial reporting, any internal control findings or financial reporting.
Okay, I'm trying to square that circle, because it's like there's the last sentence of the next paragraph says, because of inherent limitations in internal control, including the possibility of management overrides, misstatements due to error or fraud may occur and not be detected by such controls.
Yeah, and that's what audit risk is. The risk that a misstatement of the financials could occur and not be detected by the audit team. So we disclose that. We don't look at every transaction throughout the year. Most of our testing is based on sampling, and there's sampling risk. Our procedures are designed for, I think it's 95% reliability, which is effectively what most industry firms do. That leaves a 5% chance that if a material error exists, we might not detect it. Even if we follow professional standards to the T, there's still a 5% chance because we can't give absolute assurance.
Okay, so I guess one of the concerns I have is this year we have a lot of things going over budget. My understanding of budget was that that's not really a, what's the word, discretionary item. So I'm wondering about
it's a little
the control issue is a little bit top of mind for me.
Yeah, so it's a little quirky the way you report as an enterprise fund. You don't present a budget to actual schedule in your financial statements. It's not required. There's no reason you couldn't. If it was a decision you wanted to make in the future, you could present a budget to actual schedule with supplemental information. But because you operate as an enterprise fund, there's no budget to actual display. And again, we're not comparing your expenses to budgeted expenses. That's really not part of our audit procedure. The quirk is, if we were across the street at the county and they were presenting governmental funds, general funds, special revenue funds, they do present budget to actual displays. And if expenditures did exceed budget, that would be a disclosure we'd require them to make to call the reader's attention to that. But again, because you report as an enterprise fund, that's not a part of your financial reporting package. It is a little quirky, I'll give you that.
Okay. So I'm not an expert in audits, obviously. I understand that there are some parts of an audit package that are typical. One of them is like a letter to management, the other is like a communication with those charged to governance, in this case would be the board.
Yep.
Were there any such, besides this, were there any such letters?
Yeah, well, they're
drafted?
all included in the financial reporting package. So within there, you'll get the financial statement opinion, the yellow book opinion. There'll be an opinion on the federal and state single audit. There's also an examination that's required by the state's Auditor General on your compliance with the investment standards, 218, 415, I believe, Florida statutes. And then, of course, there's a management letter that's really addressed to the Auditor General, but they call it a management letter. But that would all be included in the financial reporting package.
Okay, so staff has that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's been delivered.
Okay, I'm gonna be getting a copy of it. So sorry, I'm maybe asking
No,
you
please,
questions that I should already know the answer to.
the reason I'm here is to answer questions.
Okay, so the summary reported a number of around $60-some thousand in expenses that were miscategorized or undercounted. Can you tell me what that was?
The corrected misstatements there. So those were the corrected misstatements. Those are audit adjustments that we had to make. And every time we make an audit adjustment, this is something management gives us. Management's responsible for the financial information. We audit it. So if we come across a misstatement or something, we have to propose a journal entry to correct it.
Okay.
That's an indication of control deficiency, as you were asking. And so for each of these, we had to evaluate if they rose to the level of a significant deficiency. The 2.1 million sounds like a big number, but it's just a classification difference. It actually gets reported in the same line in the financial statements. It's just one category is depreciable and one's not. The financial
Right.
impact was de minimis. But we did propose that entry. We've talked a lot about the second one. It was a small adjustment, and we did make the adjustment because it's higher than what we'd call, it's above our de minimis threshold, but it really didn't get to the point quantitatively that we thought it rose to the level of a significant deficiency. And we've actually had some talks about, you have a new this finance team wasn't even here at this balance sheet date. I think that, Lisa is your primary operation. You have a new finance department. I have actually provided them with a couple links to webinars on lease accounting. We've talked about getting them some more help before 25 rolls around, because it's a really quirky area. It's a new standard. It's only 3-ish years old, maybe 4 now. It's quirky. Once you understand it, it's not hard, but we have talked about kind of getting your team up to speed because it's your primary activity.
Okay. And what about the uncorrected misstatements? It's on the next slide of, why are those, can you talk to
Yeah,
why
so
those
those
were
are,
corrected?
those again were things that we did not consider material. We did detect, the first one was cutoff issues, getting accounts payable recorded at year end. And again, the person, was there even a person here at year end last year?
No.
I'm not sure there was.
Revolving
No.
door.
They missed a couple payables. Again, not a large amount of money, but if it's not material, or if not what we consider material, we can put it on what's called a past adjustment schedule, where we just all agree, and they sign off, management signs off on it. We agree that it's a misstatement. We agree it's not materially impacting the financial statements, and we just agree to put it on a past adjustment schedule and move on. It's, our opinion says the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. So these are items that we would not consider material to have a significant impact on your balance sheet or your income statement. And your balance sheet has over $100 million of assets on it. So they're not de minimis, but they're not to the level that we said you gotta, we're putting our foot down, you have to make these adjustments. They were just relatively small, and they'll reverse in 25.
I appreciate the education. So did you test grant revenues or receivables as of the end of
Oh,
the
yes.
the year?
We do a lot over the grants because there's not only financial reporting requirements, there's compliance requirements, and I think that's on a subsequent slide. So we test substantively we test them. So if you report $2 million of grant revenue, we substantively test it. We vouch it to cash receipts. We look at it against the contract. We make sure that you're entitled to recognize the revenue. And that's just the financial statements. But because these are federal and state grants, we have to look into compliance. And not just compliance, but internal control over compliance. And more so than under governmental auditing standards, we are required to test internal controls over your grant compliance.
Okay.
We did have 2 matters that we reported as significant. Well, one reported as immaterial noncompliance, but the feds require that you do it. That had to do with the AIP program, federal FAA grant. There's a requirement that you track equipment purchased, grant monies, as federal property. And the Fed's concern is that I give you a $2 million grant, you buy a bunch of fancy airport trucks and stuff like that, and then you sell them to keep the money. So the compliance requirement is that you track equipment as in your capital asset records as federal equipment. It was a little interesting because typically, you don't get many grants for equipment. All of your grants are usually capital, building aprons, building hangars, taxiways, runways. So this grant was a little unusual, especially for the team that was here last year. The equipment that was purchased was for the air traffic control tower. And I just assumed they didn't know the requirement. So it was about $190,000 of equipment that went into the tower. It wasn't identified as federal equipment. So we called that immaterial noncompliance and a significant deficiency in internal control over compliance. We talked to the new team about it. They're aware of it. I think they've already have a policy to do it. It's something I wouldn't worry about going forward. I think it was an unusual grant, and that team just didn't understand it, didn't know the requirements.
Okay.
Then the second had to do with something very trivial. So again, not only do we test internal control over grants, or not only do we test compliance, we have to test internal control. So it's not enough to be in compliance. You have to have internal controls in place to ensure that you stay in compliance. And this was just over the reporting requirement of the state grant, the Aviation Development Program, FDOT. And you have certain reporting requirements that you have to file reports with them quarterly or monthly. I forgot which one this was. And we didn't find anything wrong with the reports. There were no errors. But there was no evidence that there was internal control over it. There was no evidence. And I think somebody probably was reviewing it, but one of the elements of internal control is monitoring. And if you don't document that a review took place, you can't monitor it. So we wrote a significant deficiency in internal control over reporting, simply because there was no way to monitor it. And again, management's been very willing to work with us in that. They understand it. I think they already have, as I understand it, and they wrote a response to those findings, which are in the audit report. I think they've already written operating policies to address that issue, to make sure that there's a documentation of the review.
Okay. So did you have any subsequent event procedures performed?
Yes, we did. And I think we were back and forth on one. It's slipping my mind. I don't think we ended up writing it as I made the final call. It didn't seem material to the user. These would be something, and again, we're already 8 years past, or heck, already almost 11 months past the year end. So it was something that happened very far, but a subsequent event was something that happened either after the balance sheet date or before the balance sheet date we didn't become aware of, and that impacts the user's opinion. And I don't think we came across anything that we thought would have impacted the user's opinion. Typically, these are things like new debt. If you issue debt between the balance sheet date and the issuance date, you probably disclose that. Any material noncompliance, new litigation, something you might disclose. Usually it's Usually it's some type of contingent liability that you, or real liability that you would disclose.
Okay. Thank you for walking through all of that with me. It was very helpful. That's all the questions that I had.
Okay. You know, like I said, I usually run through these slides very quickly because I've been doing this a long time and I've seen the lights go out in people's eyes too many times. But I think if I were in your shoes, and I sit on a couple boards and hear board presentations, what I care about hearing is, you know, are we getting caught up? You know, 2023 was a very difficult year, a lot of turnover, took a lot longer than it should have. We were hoping this year was going to go smoother and we had a plan, and then, you know, you had a catastrophic event right around the year end. But my team really thought you guys pulled it together. You know, you had a new controller, you had to get her up to speed, she had to learn the airport, she had to learn the governmental accounting. And we pulled it together, and I think we have a pretty good plan to get you back on track. You know, typically the airport's always filed around February-ish, you know, for each year, and you should. It's a small entity, it's an easy entity. And if you could just stop, you guys have been through so much, but if you just find a little stability, I think we do have a plan to start getting you closer and closer to the year end again.
Sorry, I'm frantically writing.
Well, no, and like I said, if you have any other questions, the point of this too is, and I should emphasize, our audit opinions are addressed to the board. Our responsibility is to communicate with those charged with governments. Oftentimes, people don't understand that. Board members don't understand, because we work very closely with management, and I would like to make management happy if I can. But if I can't, my responsibility is to you. So if you do have more questions at any time, you know, I'm pretty easy to reach. You know, Linda can give you my contact information. If you have concerns, questions, at any point in the year, I'm happy to help.
Okay, well, I definitely appreciate that.
So our goal is to file by the year end, is that what you're telling us? Not the February where we have been, is that what would be
No,
ideal?
so typically, historically, and I could go back sometime, well, when I first got into government, the glamorous world of government auditing, I was a senior auditor on this 25 years ago. And this airport, you know, it's pretty simple, and usually, you know, the one thing that makes it hard to file is you're waiting on the FRS information. They don't publish till mid-January. But I think prior to kind of all the turnover that you've experienced, the audit would get done in like November, December. We'd draft financials, wait for the FRS to publish their pension data, and then we'd probably be signing off or presenting in a February board meeting. So I think the goal is to get back to that, more of a normal cycle. Probably won't happen for 25, because I think your finance team is exhausted right now. But the actual due date with the state and the feds is 9 months after the year end. So the deadline is June 30th. So I think the goal is to not just leave them alone for the next 5 months. We'll probably target to start in April, and this audit should really take no more than a month, 3 weeks probably. But the plan was, and the discussion we've had, is to sit down with the current finance team and just go through a list. These are the things you need to do to close your books. These are the things you'll need to provide to us on April 1st if you want to have an effective audit. And we'll give them time to work on it, you know, while they're still doing the airport operations and keeping the place running. They'll have time to assemble all that data. So hopefully when my team comes out in April, it'll be real quick, it'll be over. You'll file long before the June 30th deadline. And then we can work on getting 26 back on track to be more of a, you know, a timely filing.
So for this cycle, were you able to timely get all the documents you did request?
Yeah, I mean, it took a long time. And not because I think anybody was holding anything from us, it was just a brand new team. And let's face it, the transactions that occurred during 24, nobody here had familiarity with. So sometimes you have questions and they have to play detective and reassemble what happened. It's a task I really would not have envied them, but we got everything we asked for. I wouldn't have signed the opinion had we not. It was a heavy lift, but you know, staff was diligent. They worked well with my team, and you know, we don't have anything to report. You know, there's actually part of that slide deck. There's part of the required communications are significant difficulties encountered during the audit. And really nothing, I mean, you think about it, it wasn't an easy audit. It wasn't issued till August, late August. But when it says significant difficulties, it means we're arguing with your, in my understanding, we're arguing with your team. They're pushing back, they're not giving us what we need. If that were the case, that is something that the AIC believes we should be sharing with you. It's a qualitative aspect of the audit, but we did not experience anything like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you want me to, I don't know much about that forensic audit, but did you want me to just hang around, just if you were gonna go over it?
That's your
Um,
decision.
Yeah, I think if you wouldn't mind.
I don't want to force you.
Okay.
Jeff, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So one of the things, when you were saying the new team, and you were talking about getting information, can you explain to the board during the course of that year, how long we were, any of us, were a part of it? I think it was 8 months that nobody that's currently sitting in this room
Yeah.
had anything to do with it?
Yeah, and I don't know when Mr. Top resigned exactly. I think it was over the summer. But, you know, at that time, the then interim executive director had hired an outsourced accounting firm to do like outsourced CFO work, and they'd hired a new controller. And by September 30th, I don't even know how you guys are writing checks, because I don't know who was here to do it. The team was gone. I believe we were introduced to your current controller probably November-ish. I think we might have had a little meeting November, December-ish. But effectively, it was a brand-new team. I mean, it was 3 people in finance, sort of 3 people, two people in finance, and then you guys lean into finance too. You know, I think there was a lot of detective work they had to do, kind of pulling this stuff together. Just, you know, it's if you weren't there when the transaction happened, you don't necessarily understand the rationale for it. So it was a bit of a puzzle they had to put together.
Yeah, we're painfully aware of Shandon.
Is that it?
I think if you wouldn't mind hanging out
Sure.
for the forensic part,
Yeah.
and then we'll have, maybe do the comment of the bundled financials.
Okay. You know, one thing, and I don't think there are really any consequences for this, but I believe the board is supposed to vote to accept the audit report. I know you can't do that now. It might be something you put on an agenda when you do a
And
report.
we're gonna have a long agenda when we audit.
All right, I'll just sit back there if you need me again.
All right, thank you so much.
No worries.
So, just a brief update on the forensic audit. We did, as council, receive some information sitting with Mr. Pittman, which indicated that there may or may not have been inappropriate use of airport funds and/or credit card charges or gift cards or things of that nature. At this point, there's sufficient information that council believes that it would be prudent that Mr. Pittman direct that information to the state's attorney's office for further investigation. At this point, because it is our recommendation that that take place, we would, the board can't make a decision, but council is strongly urging Mr. Pittman to push that stuff to the state's attorney's office for their investigation. There could possibly be a need for additional forensic auditing at a relatively expensive cost to the authority. However, in our discussion with our colleagues at our law firm, we believe the prudent next step is to take it to the state's attorney's office to see what, if anything else, they would like us to do before we do that. So again, the board cannot direct Mr. Pittman, but I think Mr. Pittman understands his obligations to the authority and is acting consistent with that on that matter. Happy to answer questions. However, we have very limited information at this point because the auditing firm could not complete the audit due to the cost. But again, there are sufficient findings that would warrant a referral.
Okay, so, to be clear, I know we don't have a quorum. We can't do a vote to direct staff. But we can ask, as individual board members.
I don't even know if he needs us to have any part of it, because it sounds like,
Well, I would be supportive if it looks like there's
well, sure.
criminal activity that get reported to the law enforcement.
Right, but in order for him to do that, he doesn't need us to do that, correct?
He
I
does
just want
not
to be
need
sure
you
that
to
he doesn't
take
have to wait for
direction.
us to
That is-
direct him to do
that
that.
is- and Mr. Pittman, maybe you can speak on this about, kind of your and Jeffrey's conversations and our conversations around that if you'd like. It might make sense at a high level to talk about what you're thinking and what next steps would be.
Absolutely. So we did a very thorough investigation with the forensic auditors. And it got to a point where I was concerned about my cost point, whether or not I should keep going, digging. There was substantial information found. And I would suggest to the board, maybe we keep going. But like I said, it would be something that I would love to, at maybe one-on-ones with the board members, explain some more in detail, because some of these things are allegations. We don't know who, necessarily the who's. Man, I'm being very careful in what I'm saying right now. But I think that'd be more of a one-on-one discussion about more of the intimate details of the forensic audit findings until we decide what we want to do collectively as far as the investigation. But I must caution the board, it's getting expensive. Right now, we're at $25,000 into the investigation, and they want to go further. There are things like leases, agreements, and where rent's not being paid. There's a lot of things that have come up in this investigative process.
Can I ask a question? And maybe you can't answer this. Does the amount of, I don't know how to say this, the $25,000 that we've currently paid, is that greater or less than the amount of money that has been allegedly mishandled?
It is, 25,000 is just, we did the math, it's just under. It's just under.
And you
What they
think there's
found at that
more
point.
information, should we keep going?
I would say we need to, I don't know how to answer that. I would say that I would need a scale time frame. So the way we did it initially was we did around a 2-year cycle, right? To get the full picture of everything. We did a 2-year cycle. And so I think we need to set a true scale of what we definitively want to search into if we proceed forward. 2 years might be too broad, but I wanted the full year because sitting in this position, I'm tired of the gotchas and the things that pop up that you weren't expecting. So I wanted to get a full picture of the finances to see what had been going on and to see if there was anything else that we might have to explain one day.
Well, I hesitate to spend additional funds, understanding that we can't direct one way or the other right now. But if in the event that if it is given over to law enforcement and they have forensic auditors and they, I don't know if this is work that they could do as part of an investigation potentially, and they may want, and if it's one of those, hand them over what there is, they look at it, maybe they have the capability to look further, and then, or, yeah, there may be synergies there, for lack of a better word. And we can always go back and decide to do more later, but I think it may be good to follow the recommendation of handing it off to law enforcement and seeing what they want or need from the authority to move forward.
And I agree with your point. And if I could add, giving us the scope of what we want to look at. Are we looking at, because what started this was an individual, right? And then that moved on. Like I said, I'm addressing this with a very light touch. Started it was an individual, then it branched on to other things. So what I would like in the future from the board, along with the legal team, is to decide what paths we would like to go forward.
Is this something that, given the nature of it and the sensitivity of it, because it sounds to me, and I could be very wrong, but it sounds to me like there could be some future allegations made against people from this airport. Would that be something that would fall under a shade meeting so that we can openly discuss it? We would have to openly discuss these people should the time come publicly?
No, the answer, if the question was directed to me, the answer is no. Under Florida sunshine law, investigative meetings and the discussions thereof would be required to be had in public.
Okay.
The reason that this information has not been made, the actual preliminary findings, is because they are incomplete.
Okay.
and so it would not be placing allegations out without incomplete material and information.
Sure.
Would potentially put the agency at risk.
Yeah.
So when a formal board meeting is convened with the appropriate quorum, that would be something the board would want to consider then.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think in the shorter term, if time, effort, money is gonna be spent on anything rather than doing additional forensics, it seems to me that it's crying out for a review of internal controls, because how did this happen? How did one bad actor, possibly more than one bad actor, able to do this? It sounds like, something that happened on more than one occasion, going over time, that suggests a weakness in the financial controls that needs to get
Right.
addressed. Like, how is it one person is able, if this is true, able to misappropriate funds multiple
And I'm
times
assuming the
over
year was
time?
not 2024 that this happened,
Right,
it was
so
prior to.
we're painting it in the wrong, we're painting it wrong. It's not a bad actor, one bad actor who's in the finance department did something. No, and it's not that would be
It sounds like
advertising it
you
wrong.
might need to give each of us an update in separate meetings
Absolutely.
before we even continue this.
Yeah, well,
discussion.
if Buns left the airport in a criminal way, that tells, I have massive concerns that
Right.
policy and procedures are not sufficiently strong enough. Whoever it was, whatever department they were in, whatever it was, sounds like this was not a one-off, and there's probably room for improvement.
So perhaps plan to have a separate meeting with each of us at some point to update on this, because,
Yeah, but.
I mean, it's a moot point for us to keep talking about it because we can't approve you to spend more money anyway, so.
Right. So should we, guys, talk about the financial statement?
Let's do it.
I just got this right before the meeting, so I haven't had time to do any kind of deep dive.
Right.
And I just note that we haven't seen any financial updates, at least I haven't, since the last formal meeting, which was in April. There's a lot of catching up to do.
Well, if it'll help the board, we can do a financial presentation as y'all follow along, then you can ask questions. We're prepared to brief you all on the current financials, and maybe that'll help, instead of us trying to read it right now. Typically, we provide these at a board meeting, we don't typically provide these at a workshop. And so if that, like I said, for the sake of time and transparency, we can run down both of the sheets to help you all, and if there any questions derive from that.
Well, I guess I just have a couple of questions in line with concerns I brought up at prior board meetings. It looks like fuel service revenue is just over $1 million actual year-to-date. The actuals for last year was more than that, 1.14 million. So we're underperforming last year actuals, and we're underperforming the budgeted number, which is 1.241. So off by almost $250,000 in what we anticipated we would get for fuel and have not. That's concerning. The professional services number is way over budget, but I think we can all appreciate why that is. The professional development, I don't remember what it said for March, but it looks like that is a bigger number than it was. So I ask you, Mr. Pittman, why are you continuing to spend over budget on something like professional development? when we are not, we are so over budget on so many things, and under not getting the revenue that we anticipated. And at the last meeting, you said that most of those funds were going to pay for your personal development, is that?
No, okay, so that's why I think we need to do the financial presentation, because you're taking it bit by bit, and it is, you're not painting it in a true light. So, for example.
These are real numbers, aren't
So,
they?
let me explain the
No,
fuel. I'm gonna answer you, yes.
These are real numbers.
Yes, but you, like I said, for the fuel, for example, Southeast Zero no longer exists. So it was budgeted that Southeast Zero, we was gonna get amount of fuel from Southeast Zero. There's no Southeast Zero. That also was budgeted that the fuel price will be, on average, way higher than we're currently, but we've never sold the fuel at the price, and the fuel is down nationwide, right? And then fuel flowage fees that we get from Atlantic, they're also down. So Atlantic's not even selling the fuel that we expected. So when the budget was created, it had different quantities in mind. And so that is what is affecting.
Well, I can
The fuel.
appreciate that facts change and assumptions made don't necessarily meet reality.
Right.
That leads to the question of, usually when that starts to happen in an organization, you start making adjustments.
Yeah.
Belt tightening where you can. Yet, that is not what I'm seeing here, is particular, like, us on the professional development. You see that we're not getting the fuel funds, and authorization for the budget on professional development was $6,833 for the budgeted year-to-date, and the expenditure is almost $30,000.
Okay, so you alluded to, no, you didn't allude, you flat out said that it was my professional development. That is incorrect.
You said that to
That
me
is
at the
incorrect.
last meeting. So did you?
As part of the
are-
board's agreement in paying me, I got money for college. That is not, that, so. that
Sir,
was-
where
so
is that written down?
You all agreed to it, and
No.
it was written down by the old general counsel sent from you all, and he called each one of you.
No. That is incorrect. I never agreed to any such thing. You were hired at will
Correct,
with
because I never had a
no,
contract.
no contract, which means no special agreements for anything.
Yes, when on May 10th, okay, if you want to talk about financials, or you want to talk about my contract? I'm sorry, my pay.
Well, I'm concerned that you're now saying that you're entitled to the airport paying for your college, when do you have a written document signed
General
by?
counsel sent it to me, saying that you all agreed, that was the terms to get me to stay.
I didn't sign any such thing. I don't remember where,
There is a document.
there is a document.
It was. It was part of, there was. It's memorialized. We've been through this, I think.
No, I don't recall that. Well, that is news to me. I don't remember that ever being discussed. I remember at the meeting talking about how you specifically were going to be hired at will, and you understood that the risk that you were taking by doing that. And that was like a point of discussion.
This is Board Member Leota. I was
So
told.
if I am wrong, and if there is something that the board approved, and I was not aware of its contents, then that's on me, that's my fault, but I would like to see that.
Okay,
Please send it to me,
okay.
because I don't remember the board ever approving any such expenditures.
All right, so we want to talk about fuel, what you want to talk about in reference to the financials?
Those are all the questions, specific questions that I had. Oh, I did have one more. The contract temp labor line item has 0 budget and appears to be larger than it was at the last meeting. So you're continuing to spend without budget authority on contract labor?
No,
So the number's not bigger than it was at the last meeting?
I have to confer with my controller, but we are not continue.
That number has not changed since, March.
Okay, so it might be the same number we saw at the last meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I remember it being more like 100,000 even, but that could be me. I don't have the last set of numbers in front of me. Okay, that's all my questions on that.
okay for now. If I come up with some questions, I will address those
Okay.
after.
So I guess now we, these items, put it to public.
Yeah, I would
Public
suggest a
comment?
general public comment, public comment period, and then for each additional item, public comment prior to those items being discussed. So that
Okay,
people will
right,
have a
so-
chance to discuss or bring concerns about those items to the board's attention before there is a substantive discussion on those items.
Okay, well, that could be very helpful, actually. So for right now, we're gonna open out to public comments specifically on airport finances.
These three financial
I
matters.
would,
Or
if I may,
general?
I would just allow it to be general at this point.
okay.
And then if there are additional comments on the specific items, you can go there as well.
So when you say general, you mean general only regarding what is on our approved, agreed agenda? for today?
Correct. This is not about
Anything else?
anything else.
Okay,
And the board can, or the board members can control that comment how they see fit.
thank you.
Since we don't really have a chair, could we maybe just have general counsel acknowledge people, keep it that way?
Sure. I believe in your rules, it's 3 minutes for public comment, is that
Yes.
correct, if memory serves? So I'll set a timer, and then I guess, at the member's request, is there any public comment on the stated agenda items at this point?
Sasha Martin, 133 Coastal Hollow Circle. Generally speaking, on September 2nd at 9:19 in the morning, I received an email from Linda Santiago saying, "Dear partners, tenants, and community partners, attached, please find our workshop agenda and pre-read materials for September 8th." Now, that's 6 days ago, and I had plenty of time to go over and make questions and comments on what I received. I know that we don't get the details that you do, but I don't understand why we spent 40 minutes this morning arguing about the fact that the materials were not received well in advance. Regarding the audit, it was one of the best audit reports I've ever seen. And it was very understandable as far as it, of course, went, because there were some things that were not addressed. But they said they did not identify any control deficiencies or material weaknesses. There were no significant unusual transactions. There were no contentious matters and no conditions of concern. And then it did say that there were a few things that still needed to be looked at. But anyway, I found the report very readable and very understandable, because I remember several years ago when there was $700,000 that was found that was charged to the wrong account. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Yes, sir. If you could come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Joseph Lopinto, 529 Rio Mirada Court, St. Augustine. How are the fuel prices set? Doing a four-flight survey, St. Augustine tends to be number 2 or 3 in the highest cost per gallon. And I personally know of people that fly to other airports to get fuel at a significant discount as compared to us. I'm sure that the financial folks are doing some kind of a relationship, revenue versus cost per gallon. And that might help bring in the total revenue. It may decrease your margin, I don't know what your margin are with respect to each gallon, but it may get your overall revenue up if you were to bring it back in line with the surrounding area of the, nearest 20-mile airports. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess that is, maybe Mr. Pittman, if you could explain how our fuel price is set. I think way back in the day, I might have heard of someone say that there's some kind of formula that's applied consistently by staff. I don't know that to be true. I've never seen anything in writing, so if you could just educate us all on how prices are done.
Absolutely. So what we do is we take, depends on where we get the fuel, one. So do we get it from the Everglades or do we get it from Tampa? because the price changes depending on which one you get it from. Same company as Titan. And so then what we do is we don't just do 20 miles or 25 miles, we do 100 miles to see what's going on. And then what you can't compare apples to apples, right? It's apples to oranges in this scenario. So if you look at an airport like Flagler or Palaca, they don't have everything we have here. So it actually makes a price adjustment. So you got to offset for costs for the maintaining of the fuel tank and what have you. So we take all those things in consideration, the price of the fuel, then trying to make a profit. The policy states that at a minimum, I got to make a 25-cent profit. And then also we typically don't, it depends on when we buy fuel. So we don't buy fuel every week. So the price could fluctuate at another place versus where we're at. So if you go to another airport and we haven't changed the price because we still have in our tanks the price that we got before, it's gonna still be that price. So if Flagler, for example, buys fuel after we purchase fuel, their fuel is maybe cheaper if the price drops. So it depends on where we at the tanks. Does that make sense? And so we try to maintain roughly about an 80 to 90% profit to be able to maintain the tanks, right? Because we got a grant coming for them and we're trying to fix them. We're down to one tank right now. And so to be able to do the maintenance, the upkeep of said tank, that's why we put that profit in. 25 cents wouldn't be enough, but like I said, that's what's in the policy, man.
So you're saying there's a written policy of the airport somewhere that states you have to have a minimum 25% profit?
That's right.
And anything above that, is there a written policy as to what that is, or is that just something
It's
that
up to me.
you pick?
That's correct.
Okay.
What are we at right now for the market?
It's always 90 cents. We always stay around 90 cents. So, and also, like I said, it depends on when we purchase it, what the price is. So for example, if I purchase it on the first of the month,
I don't
we
think that-
haven't purchased any in the next 2-3 weeks, and the price of the fuel goes down at other airports. We're still at the cost point. Because what we identified was, and it's one of the things that came up in the forensic audit, there was a time period back in, I want to say 2023, early 2024, where we was actually giving away fuel. We was paying people to take the fuel, right? Because they weren't making the adjustment. So we was actually
So you
selling
were-
it for 10 cents less than we bought it for.
But you're making it up on volume, right? Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
Sell at a
So,
loss, make it up on
yeah,
volume.
so-
Okay, so I don't think I've seen that written policy. Could you just have staff send me a copy?
I didn't see that in the policy.
Okay. So I think I saw someone else stand up.
Yes, I apologize. Any other public comment?
Just some follow-up, as you guys were discussing.
Name and
Sorry,
address?
Reed Deputy, 1089 Santa Cruz Street, St. Augustine. As you guys were discussing your cost, volume, profit, we heard 80% margin, we heard 25 cents, I think I heard you say 25%. Can you go over that, or is this document of this in related operational procedural documents, is that something that the public has access through the website today?
Yes, sir. It's in the airport policy. So it's 25 cents is the minimum. The minimum that I can do is 25 cents.
And,
But I set the price.
for the 25 cents and the grants that you're applying for, do you guys normally put any kind of a reserve towards future capital equipment, improving the fuel farm and that kind of a thing?
Yes, so-
Where are we at with regards to a reserve like that?
Great question. So this year has been the year of toward the end, we're getting into the projects. So if you look at the financials, there was a lot of projects that were projected to happen in the budget. So that makes us look like about $2 or $3 million less than what we was budgeted to have, because it was accounting for FAA and FDOT grants that we did not receive. And so, yes, we do put in reserves. So that's why one of the things we started this past year under my watch was to have a meeting with the board members to say, hey, these are the projects we have slated. And this is the splits, is it 80-20, 50-50, or what have you. So we can make a determination, is this the direction we want to go through? Because we got the grant, do we do it in fiscal year 25, 26, what have you, so we can make sure that we have the finances available to go forward with those projects.
Okay. that makes sense. I heard the question maybe slightly differently.
Okay.
If you are asking about a general capital equipment reserve fund, like for just general capital improvements, I don't believe the airport has a capital reserve fund for just like general, like hangars or field
All
farm.
right, so we do have a separate account, but in order for me to touch it, I have to get board authorization. So if we would, one of the things, the reason why I can't spend more than 35,000, so we do have a separate, but so if there was something we need to do, like an urgent matter, right, it's not, we're not like Naples to where we have a significant, $60 million budget, but we do have access to funds that, but like I said, the board would have to give me authorization.
Okay, yeah, and that's, to be clear, we have a reserve fund
Mhm.
that's for anything that up and over and above budget, but that's not like a some people have like a separate designated, money goes in for capital improvements in the future. We don't have a separate account for that I've ever.
Just a quick point of order. That section of public comment, but because this isn't a board decision, it could certainly be extended if you choose to. And then for cross-reference, the fuel policy is set forth in your administrative policy published on the website, 2022 version, Article 6. And it does state that it is an average profit margin of 25 cents per gallon when viewed over the previous 12-month period, and the executive director shall use consideration within a 100-mile radius.
And follow up to your point, you have a $35,000 discretionary authority.
Mhm.
Since at this point you don't have a fully functioning board, what is the, if you had a $50,000 expense that came due, what is the procedure for you as the executive director to go about in getting whatever that is?
Am I allowed to answer that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so it's one of the things we've discussed, discussed with legal, I apologize, my mouth getting dry. Discussed with legal. I am hard capped at 35,000. And so we discussed it, and I even used the word unique times. Is there a special consideration for said unique times? There is, in the sense of, for grants and things of that nature, where I could go with the county, and the county might be slid in, or the city of St. Augustine Beach is slid in as someone who accepts the grant on our behalf. But when it comes to these expenditures, this is a very unique situation. And that is the reason why we have all together bonded together in the sense of, hey, to the governor saying that we need at least one board member. We've actually weighed out all options. We put it on the dry erase board and said, hey, what can we do?
Any additional public comment? Hearing none, I'll close public comment. I believe the next item on the agenda is the board governance. And given it's an addition to the agenda, if I may be so bold, from the commissioners, I would suggest you open up again public comment for governance-related matters. Any objection from a board member? Excellent. I'll go ahead and open the floor for public comment related to governance matters impacting the airport. Any public comment? Mr. Leota, would you mind coming up, please? And name and address, please.
Matt Leota, 4640 Palm Valley Road. Obviously, nobody knows, well, I guess maybe DeSantis knows when he might appoint somebody, but we don't know when and how long this is going to remain the situation. And while it's been made painfully clear to us here today about what the board can, can't do, what staff can hear and not hear direction-wise, it seems obvious to me that there needs to be a elimination of a little bit of the kabuki theater that's going on. If the two board members can voice their opinion, even though they can't direct staff, but if they're unanimous, it seems like staff should really listen to that. And, you know, maybe people can't force everything, but also, like, if staff wants to do something that the board members don't want them to do, it seems kind of crazy to do it. Seems like we can recognize the legal situation that we're in, but we can also recognize the practical reality that, you know, where we're going to end up when it gets fixed. And where we're going to end up where it gets fixed is all having to work together, and if, you know, things have been destroyed in the meantime, that's not gonna work out. Thanks.
Any additional public comment on the governance item? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the workshop here.
So, I think maybe it would be helpful to give some context to you and everybody here. I was clearly upset at the beginning of the meeting, and that's because there's a history that is not, I mean, it's public record in that it's emails, but I don't think it's necessarily particularly known to people. And I've had increasing levels of frustration, and I think this was not being given the board materials was a aggravation of, in my view, of some of the things that I've been personally trying to deal with. I do take it seriously that one of the board's one of the core function of the board is oversight of staff. The 5 elected, theoretically, board members are the last stop, the only oversight of the staff. That's it. There's no county, there's nothing else. So if we're not able to do our jobs, staff is unchecked. And that requires healthy governance, transparency, board getting the information it needs. And I've had multiple requests on specific topics related to the governance of the airport going back since March, that I have written formal emails saying, as a board member, I would like these documents, suggesting timelines, asking for maybe if they want to do like documents in batches, trying very hard to make it something the staff could manage. I haven't received a single document, not one. Not a single response to when I might see a document. Sometimes outright refusal to provide documents, suggesting that I should pay for documents. And it's just not okay. I believe it at this point to be willful insubordination. And that this instance of this last time where I asked for information on these topics ahead of time so that I could look at the materials, understand them, and have the ability to maybe ask for additional questions before, or at least at the meeting, promised that I would get materials, and then told the weekend before the meeting that I was just not going to get them because of some unspecified Attorney General guidance, is beyond frustrating me. And I've got the emails here of the documents I asked for, and why, and what my concerns were, and I have yet to receive a single word from staff, or as to, on any of them, let alone, not even a response. Just, oh, here's your public records request number, and when I ask, am I gonna get something? When am I gonna get it? I even went so far as to talk with general counsel about it, and then after that said, hey, here's your deadline, because at this point, I have to be able to do my job, and I have been over 140 days waiting, and deadline came and went. Again, nothing from staff. So maybe, I'm happy to go over in detail what those were.
I don't know if we necessarily need to do that. I certainly believe what you're saying. I imagine that is extremely frustrating.
And
that is not the experience that I've had, so I can't speak to that. But I do know that
well, that is
prior
in and of
staff
itself.
members that we have encountered that have done similar things were met with some very harsh consequences for that. So I would suggest that while we cannot make decisions right now, I would suggest that the staff here at the airport take that seriously when a board member requests something, and maybe there was miscommunication, I don't know, on whether it was a public record request or a board member asking. I would presume, coming from a board member, that we would know that it is a board member requesting that information.
Well, each of my initial emails, going back to March, were characterized as a member of the board, I am asking for X, Y, Z.
Right, I mean, you've
And-
always been very clear on your role in announcing what role you're.
So I don't think that there
Doing things, yeah.
necessarily should have been confusion. I was given public records numbers, and I was perfectly fine with that. I mean, if it helps them manage
Sure.
what they're doing. But it's not okay for that to just then be treated like,
Well,
that
right,
I
I-
can
I
just
would
not be
presume-
responded to, and
and-
then suggested that I should be charged for information to do my job, which
Right, I
there
can't
is.
imagine, and that might be a question for our legal counsel, I can't imagine that,
No,
I
I-
understand when you make a public records request, it is, we have the opportunity to put that cost back on the person making that request, but if it's a board member requesting information, I would presume we would not be charged for asking for information for our.
No,
Okay.
as a member of the board, a board member is entitled to
You
the
can ask for it.
information at no cost. It's in furtherance of their duties.
Okay.
And then some of them may have been broader than others, they were, some of my requests were definitely broader than others, and I can appreciate that. But some of them were very, very specific, like a list of, like, a transcript of a shade meeting. We were both at that meeting, it was the one regarding the EEOC complaint.
Mhm.
And so I had a specific list of document requests regarding that complaint and that matter.
Okay.
Eight different requests on that, some of them very, very specific, like a copy of the settlement, copy of the complaint, copy of the transcript. I don't see a reason why I haven't received most, if not all of those, certainly 140 days. It does greatly concern me that that particular matter involved allegations of wrongdoing by Mr. Pittman and following retaliation against the complaining ex-employee, which the EEOC did find those to be credible before the settlement. And the fact that I'm not being given copies of those 140 days later I think speaks volumes.
Right, I mean, quite frankly, in a public setting, in a political setting, whatever, perception is everything. Like, it's sometimes, the truth can be out there and people will ignore it. It's the perception, that we are dealing with at this point. And so, Mr. Pittman, are you comfortable responding to
Yeah.
anything?
I would-
Oh, absolutely.
I would actually like to know why I
Because
haven't.
I
Sorry,
absolutely
warranted.
do. I absolutely do.
No,
All right,
I
so-
don't need to go over.
So if we're
Mr.
gonna,
Pittman,
if
Mr.
we're gonna tell the
Pittman.
story, if you're gonna ask me the question, I need to
I-
answer the question
I
correctly and
asked about
fully.
my request
So
as a
about to-
board member.
That's what I'm about to do. So in these emails that have been asked from Mrs. Leota, I've asked general counsel in these emails, because it gets kind of confusing. Is she asking as a board member, or is she asking as a private citizen? I've asked general counsel to give me guidance on that. Because in Florida, if a member of the board is asking for something as a private citizen, then they are charged. They are charged, right? And then if they're not asking as a private citizen, the board member, if the board member is trying to task staff with work, the board member should go in front of the board and make a motion. So that way, if I am as the interim executive director, are paying this employee, and the employee is be tasked to do something that's outside of their normal day's work, I would like a motion, we're supposed to get a motion from the board to say, hey, I'm gonna take said individual off their job for the foreseeable future to answer all these public records requests, right? So then what I was asking for from council was, can I get some kind of direction? Because in some of these requests, Board Member Mrs. Leota is saying she wants a public records request. Now, any other time, when a board member has asked for something, they don't say they want a public records request, they just say, can you provide me with this information? At any time, a board member can come to the office and sit down at the conference table and say, hey, let me see this, let me see that. Now, if a board member says, let me have the minutes, that's something that's readily available, we just hand it to them. But in the instance of a board member specifically saying they want a public records request, I'm taking them at their word, and that's why Mrs. Santiago is sending that person an acknowledge of, and we was gonna explain all this in the agenda when it came to public records. We was gonna educate people on how public records work. And within 48 hours, she responds and she gives the subsequent title of what the public record is saying that we acknowledge and we accept it. Where if you see here, and the reason why I brought this up was just to show you all how many public records requests we have, right? Speaking about the budget earlier, we don't have a budget to handle the public records. Last year, we only had 4 public records all year. This is how many public records we've had thus far, and some of them have, as you can see, over 500 files produced. So that is taking people, and I get it, this year, and this has been a unique year, but we did not budget for this. We don't have staff on hand that can respond to all this, and so when, like I said, when a board member says this is a public records request in their email, we treat it as such, all right?
Mr. Pittman, I disagree with the way you're characterizing things. My March 26th email, for example. Mr. Pittman, as a member of the St. Johns County Airport Authority Board, et cetera, raised concerns, asked for documents. The fact that it was later slapped on a public records request label does not rob me of my right or ability to get information related to issues of concern that are part of my job, my oversight. This particular email was talking about something you said at a meeting. It was the conversation about whether airport funds were going to be going to your personal legal representation. I understand they did not. But the statement made to the board that you had decided to work with Pacero, who's a vendor, on vendor matters, on procurement matters, which raised major concerns for me. Why is a vendor being worked with? That seemed like an inherent conflict of issue because there's such a major vendor to us. Why would we be relying on them for procurement? And they're also not a law firm. And so I just wanted information about that.
And that was in March?
Yes, that was March 26th. And I asked for an April 4th deadline, like, I would like to see some documents by then. I haven't seen a single one.
In reference to that one, there was nothing to produce because we didn't use Pacero for any of that work.
Well, I asked what you said that Pacero had, I understand that ultimately they did not, but you represented to the board that there were discussions and you were going to.
Just phone calls, so there's nothing to produce.
So, did you get a response at all and it
No.
wasn't to your liking, or there was no response at all?
No response.
Do you think that perhaps moving forward, if there's nothing to report, it would be in your professional best interest to respond and say there is nothing here
Can you give me the
because-
record number?
No,
The
it's a
PRR
March 26th, 2025 email. I don't
responded
know
to
what number you ultimately put on it. I don't have that information
See,
in
the
front of me.
reason why, and I hate to have to do this, the reason why Mrs. Leota is not telling you, because it was packaged in with a whole bunch of other stuff. It wasn't just that email, all right?
I'm
It was a
happy to go
series,
through
it was a
every
series
sing-
of
yes.
emails.
Yes,
all
there
right,
were.
That were all together, and then we sent and so, I'm
It sounds like the two of you are having
No,
maybe some communication issues.
This is, I think, the perfect time to just go through it all, so
Sure.
that everybody is perfectly aware that of what has and has not been happening. If board members are getting treated differently as to the information they are given, that's a problem.
I don't know that we're being treated differently. I think you may request more information than I request.
That's
Regularly.
probably true, but some of these is because I'm potentially being either more sensitive to issues, like, why is a vendor, like, we were both there at that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It raised a red flag to me that a vendor was being invited to handle vendor management.
Mm-hmm.
That, so like, well, tell me about that. What emails did you have? How did this come about? And if So if there were no emails, how easy would it have been to just say there were no emails? But the fact that I'm given no information, no response, no professional courtesy
Right.
is a problem.
I mean, you can imagine how frustrating it is for us because we're not in the day-to-day operations of the airport. So when we do have these questions and we bring them forward and then we're met with radio silence, that can be really frustrating for us, especially if it sounds like Mrs. Leota's been waiting since March for some of these answers. So I don't know how much more you want to dig or what you're looking for, I guess, right now as an outcome.
Well, I mean,
today.
since you're saying that I'm not, making it clear what well, I think I should just go through every single one of them.
Sure.
Another one, they were all about the same time frame. So yeah, late March, which is why, again, I said, wasn't demanding instant, production of all documents.
Right.
Was happy to talk about a rolling production or have a rational discussion with staff about scope or clarification. They just didn't respond. So, this one was dating back to Monday, March 31st. Some third parties had come to me, that they had submitted some public records requests that hadn't been responded to. I think these were specific to the employee complaint.
Okay.
And I think, well, if they're not responding to members of the public, they should respond to a board member, because I don't think it was, I had concerns that staff was potentially not being transparent about documents in which they may not reflect, there might not be a good reflection on them.
Sure.
So, I asked for a copy of each public records request that was pending to get some idea of what else was out there. Copy of the written responses. I figured by then, that was like about a 2-week period. Emails about the fulfillment of the request, like why haven't these requests been answered to these other people? I wanted some information, what's going on here?
This
How-
is all still March?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put this because I know that I think there was like an influx at one point of records requests, and I think, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I'm trying to get the whole picture,
Mhm.
that staff was suddenly inundated and didn't know how
Well,
or what
right,
to
there-
do, so I'm just
I
trying to
did,
get.
I did look at some of the lists of those public records requests, and there were definitely some overlapping ones, in particular, this particular topic,
Mhm.
of the EEOC complaint. I think a couple of them were from the press, and plus mine.
Can I respond?
Not,
Because-
when I'm
because
done reading through the
Right,
list.
No, but you asked the question, Ms. Cass Chapman. We didn't have general counsel at that time, and so we couldn't release that information. So it wasn't that we were trying to hide it. I get that I'm being painted that I was trying to hide something. We didn't
Sir.
have general counsel to be able to share it.
That is
And so I
incorrect.
we didn't have general counsel in March. In February, the blocker letter came out February 24th. That board meeting was canceled. We did not have general counsel in March. And so we as staff did not know what we could release or couldn't release. So as you see, that's why I brought this up, because we're in this conversation. And all parties who requested it, once we got general counsel, received it.
So after
I-
we started with this one,
I did not receive it. I have still not received a single document for any of these emails, and you are incorrect
Okay.
that you were prohibited in any way from releasing those documents. That was a settled
Mhm.
litigation, and there was no reason, it was not an active litigation, and therefore, no exception.
No, it was regards to a redaction, if we are able to put the person's name out or not. That's what we're talking
Well,
about.
that's
So
a
we're-
different thing.
That's what we're referring to. We didn't have general counsel to say, hey, you can give this document as it is, or some things need to be removed. So
Well,
that was
that's-
not a call. So that
Okay.
is the reason, so we didn't have
But
general
that's a
counsel
different
at that
thing than
time.
saying that you weren't allowed to give out the document.
I
Redacting
just said
personal
we didn't have
information
general
out of a
counsel.
document is not the same thing as saying, oh, well, we
And
couldn't
we're
give it
not
to
qualified to
anybody.
do that,
so
so we didn't have general counsel.
perhaps for future reference, should you find yourself in a similar situation, correspondence back to say, here's why we can't respond yet, or here's what we're working on. Because, now remember, Mrs. Leota is not just a member of the public, right?
Yep.
So she is a board member, and I think that the respect for her as a board member would have warranted anything back to her to say, hi, we hear you, we see you, here's what we're working on. I think that could have gone a really long way.
And also, by the way, it would have been perfectly fine and acceptable and appreciated and expected, saying, these are unredacted documents. We can't, please don't distribute these publicly because they're unredacted and they have personal information in them. As a board member, I'm entitled to see that information because I am not a member of the general public.
But once I email you, that becomes a public record.
Can I just provide?
I think I would like general counsel to weigh in on this.
Yeah.
You've been waiting to speak, so I will weigh in.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Just as point of clarification, and I know that Ms. Laquadera gapped general counsel. She had extensive negotiations with your law firm on these production topics.
Mr. Roberts,
Mr. Roberts, yes, what? They didn't
that
happen?
is a mischaracterization. My request to staff as a board member should never be conflated with a request from the attorney representing my business, which is
Okay.
a separate matter entirely, which is why I had separate communications as a board member.
Were those documents not produced? All the documents you're asking about today, were they not produced by Mrs. Laquadera to your law firm?
I don't know. I was looking for responses to my questions.
Okay, so what we're talking about is a duplicative, double production to you personally that was also produced to your law firm, to your lawyers who got on the phone with Mrs. Laquadera and said they represented you for that public request. That's the one right up here with 29 items. Mrs. Fishback's complete file was produced to you. It's misleading to say he's hiding something.
Did you respond with no records to my 1 year ago public records request for a copy of the waiting list?
Excuse me,
Yeah, thank you.
Did you personally do that, Chad?
So, if I may, point of information, I guess order information, I'm not sure, Rich, at this point. There needs to be clarity, and I think, Mr. Roberts, this is what you're hitting on, but there needs to be clarity. Ms. Leota obviously is a member of the board. She also has business interests, right? There needs to be clarity, and I would defer to Ms. Leota's separate legal counsel. But there has to be clarity between whether the information she is requesting is in furtherance of a personal business matter, which she is entitled to request as a member of the public, which would be classified as a public records request, versus information that she would be entitled to receive as a board member. Mr. Pittman, to your point, and Mr. Roberts, to your point, that can be a fine line. But it is a line that needs to be addressed, and us as counsel are happy to help you guide on that line. But I want to be clear that we're talking about two distinct things, and we were not here prior to these requests coming in, but it's two distinct things. It is a request as a board member, and it is a potential public records request. And so just for that information, I want to be very clear from a legal perspective, they are two very different things, and what that entails. Also relative, I want to make a statement, Mr. Pittman, if I may. You are correct to a degree around the email becoming a public record. However, if it has information which is being worked on to be redacted, the Attorney General, I pulled up the Sunshine Manual just to double check myself. The Attorney General has stated that if there are redactions that are needed, those are able to be provided to a board member. They are entitled to the unredacted. However, via Sunshine request, meaning a public records request, they would need to be appropriately redacted.
And I love your response. We didn't have a general counsel for me to even ask that question to, is the point I'm trying to make.
DC, before Chris.
So, other than trying to Google it, I would not, and again, like Mrs. Leota said before, I'm not an attorney. And so, I wouldn't want to be the one that made that call without counsel and make the wrong call.
You got your personal attorney, Chad, right there.
Were there more that
Representing
you
you
wanted to, Mr. Leota, I understand your frustration, but I would also appreciate the composure that I know you're capable of. Thank you. Mrs. Leota, is there anything else from that specific part that you want to discuss before we kind of come up with maybe a game plan that we're comfortable with moving forward?
Well,
because I get that you're frustrated, and I agree, I think that the experience that you had, if all of that is as true as you say it is, that is extremely frustrating, and I do understand that that would be unacceptable. I would be livid if I waited 140 days to get something that I requested. So, if there are other particular ones you wanted to discuss and wanted to give Mr. Pittman a chance to respond to, we can do that, or I would suggest that it is time for you and I to come up with what would be adequate in the interim moving forward that would work best for the two of us.
Okay, I do have a couple more points. To the extent there were things sent to an attorney for my business, that is not being sent to me. There was an email from staff saying there may have been duplication, and I made that point already, that it's not okay to just point me in the direction of something that I don't have day-to-day. I don't work day-to-day in that business.
Right.
And those are for reasons, partly because I think it's good to have some separation there so I can be better as a board member. I asked staff a question. I think it's reasonable to get a response. And to that end, I would specifically like to know, who is the custodian of record for the airport?
Me.
You are. Okay. You understand the obligations?
Yes.
Okay. And the personal liability that comes with failure to,
Absolutely.
okay. So you, with all of that context, you were CC'd on all of my correspondence back and forth. Why did I not get a response to any of my emails?
Which emails? You said I was CC'd. Which emails?
All of these emails.
You were referring to ones you emailed me, or you emailed someone else?
Some of them were to you, some of them were to Ms. Santiago after I got referred over to her for
If
getting
I
the
remember
document.
correctly.
But you were CC'd on all of them. If you're the custodian of record, you're in charge of getting documents out, and you're the executive director, so I would, to the extent that custodian of record's not relevant because I'm asking as a board member, I don't know the nuance there. But either way, you're saying it's your responsibility to make sure I get these documents.
And Mrs. Santiago did respond to you.
I didn't receive a single document.
She responded to you. So the first thing you said was she didn't respond to you.
No,
Nobody responded.
I asked, when am I going to get documents? I
Okay.
didn't get an answer.
All right,
If I
so-
got a response back saying, we put your response in the pile, thanks, yes, technically that's a response, but I wouldn't consider it a substantive response for the purposes of this conversation.
Okay, so one of the things you requested was all the PRRs, right? And so Mrs. Santiago wanted to know what was the scope of that, right? And so is that the PRs that we already done? Is the PRs that we're working on now? Is the PRs in the future? So that is a huge scope, right?
If you
And so
read-
as you see, you were asking for, like, this right here. It says all PR requests and responses, right?
No, that's not what my email asked for.
That's
My email
April 2nd.
asked, my email was specifically limited in time to a time frame
Mhm.
of records, because I am sensitive to asking for everything under the sun
You
back in
said you wanted
time.
rolling. You said you wanted rolling.
No, I said I asked for the list in various follow-up emails. I said, when am I gonna get these documents? Do you wanna provide them to me on a rolling basis? To try to work with staff, and I got no engagement on those questions. None. Zero. So that is what I'm talking about. And I did try to be mindful about limiting things, like for the requests. Let's see. A copy of each public records request received by the authority from February 1st, 2024 through the date of this email, which was March 31st. Okay, so February of last year so that's about a year, but I also had the general understanding that there weren't that many public records requests in 2024. Like a handful, but less than 5. So that was my general understanding. If I was wrong, certainly staff could have responded back, oh my gosh, there's 50 of these things. Can we, you know, how can we help you? Can we narrow this down? Nothing, no back and forth, no rational conversation, just stone silence. Which, after getting 6+ months of that, how am I to take that other than just insubordination?
Am I to respond?
Sure.
I see what you're trying to paint, and then you're ignoring the fact that you were responded to. You're ignoring the fact that you asked for something that was out of our scope. You're ignoring the fact that in this time frame we didn't have general counsel. You're ignoring the fact that we didn't have a person to do public records requests. We didn't even have anybody, right? You're ignoring the fact that we're limited as staff. And then I had to get someone and then train them to do public records requests. And then they kept coming after the blocker letter went off. Last year, to your words, was less than 5. This is this year, right here on the board. And then that doesn't even list, that doesn't even encompass the responses, the things that they're asking for, and then the documents that have to be produced. So there's a lot of work that's entailed. And then if you label it as a public records request yourself, you're getting the response in the 48 hours, right? And then so you might call it, we can agree or disagree, mislabeling, but if you put it in the public records pile, right? And then I even asked General Counsel myself, I said, hey, I need some clarification. Is she asking, because she goes back and forth in the email, is she asking as a private citizen or is she asking as a board member?
Why didn't you ask me that?
Because there was a time period where you were like, not wanting to talk to me,
I
right?
was sending emails to you.
No, you were sending emails to General Counsel.
I was
So we
sending-
were talking back and forth through the lawyers.
This email is directed to you.
That-
That is Mr. Pittman
And then
at the
after-
top. And
af- So can you show me the
specifically
April's?
about this topic.
I don't want to.
Can I, before, I can see that this can go on for a very, very long time, and I know that it's because we're all very passionate about what we're doing here at the airport, and that's fantastic, but could I make a recommendation that perhaps to alleviate any future confusion, should Mrs. Leota be requesting something or communicating as her role as a board member, that it specifically comes from her airport email, which it seems like it kind of has this whole time?
Did.
And so if something is to be Mrs. Leota as a private citizen, it will come from maybe perhaps a private email so that we can really clearly make that distinction, because it looks like everything's come through as her airport email, which to me would say she's acting as a board member. So just to give the benefit of the doubt here, I think that maybe that would clarify things moving forward for people.
Okay.
Well, just to be clear, I think there's some gamesmanship going on here. I always send for my email. I did say as a board member, I'm asking for these. Most of these were in follow-ups to specific issues that I was trying to address as a board member. One of them, for example, was a individual came to me, I don't remember if it was email or a conversation, and they said that there was a rumor going around, word was used, rumor, about mass document destruction going on at the administration building. Okay, that's weird. So I sent an email just to Mr. Roberts and asked him to look into it. And basically, I won't go into the ins and outs of that, but I did end up getting some documentation, and I looked at it, and based on my review of the documentation I was given, it looked like it might not have been being done correctly. There was destruction going on. It didn't seem to be following Florida statutes, so I asked for specific documents about it. Clearly within the role of me as a board, I have not received anything. And if something was sent to an attorney representing my business, I was never informed of it as a board member. So assuming that I know everything that's going on with my business's lawyer is incorrect. And if something was sent over there, then I believe that's a failure of staff to communicate appropriately, which I think is just part of the course here.
Excuse me, can I just, I believe Mrs. Lacadera worked with your lawyer and specifically said, prioritize what you want, prioritize what Mr. Liotta wants, prioritize what you need first during this period. And there was,
Still have emails from Ms. Lacadera.
and there was,
And she may have given that direction. It's not clear to me that staff followed.
okay. Can I just provide some additional context? Mrs. Liotta and her company are adverse parties to the airport.
No,
To your credit,
wrong.
to your credit, you
Wrong.
disclosed it on January 16th. Your lawyer promised litigation against the airport. Your lawyer promised litigation against the airport, stood right here and promised litigation against the airport, said it will come. Mr. Pittman is the face of compliance for your company. He's been the face of the compliance actions that have had to be taken for your company. And it's up to the public to decide if your motivations are about good governance or your motivations are the fact that your company is planning litigation against the airport authority that Mr. Pittman will be a fact witness about. You're already in litigation as we speak against the 3 prior board members on the very same issues and with the very same allegations. So
I think Mr. Roberts telling me what my intents are is highly inappropriate. And telling me who I am and am not adverse to as a board member, extremely inappropriate.
well, you own Modern Aero, and they're telling us they're bringing litigation. That's all I can say. It's a pocketbook issue for you, and you should disclose that when you make these things. You should tell the public, I'm pillaring Mr. Pittman here, but he's going to be a fact witness in the case I'm bringing against the airport authority. That might be relevant and
Well, if-
meaningful.
As you mentioned, litigation was brought. The airport was not named.
Not
Mr.
yet.
Pittman was not named.
Not yet, but your lawyer promised that it will come, and we
Yes.
take you at our word.
That statement was made before 3 of the 5 sitting board members were criminally charged.
Okay.
And I have, right here, the prosecutorial summary that went into the details
So we'll
that are
s-
now wrapped up in the litigation
We'll
that
send-
specifically say that those board members were acting outside the scope of their duty, not involving the airport.
So if we send a
So-
general release to Modern Aero, releasing the airport authority from any cause of action they have with the airport authority, it'll be executed and sent back.
I love the aviation lawyer doing litigation. Well within your scope.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Liotta, for your input. We
Do
appreciate it.
you see why, commercial tenants have a problem being involved in governance? Do you see this? We can't have a board meeting with shout outs from the crowd, everything that's suspect.
It's a workshop, dude. This is not a formal board meeting.
Ms. Liotta, what are you looking for today? I know that we can't make, obviously, as we know, we can't make decisions. There's not a lot you and I can do as a board.
Well,
What
as
are
a
we
first,
looking
for,
for?
as a primary, just point of order, I am offended, absolutely offended by the thought, the precept that because my business, which has a right to protect its interests, is doing so, that therefore, as a board member, I cannot have valid concerns, and everything I say must just be ignored, thrown out, is just wrong. If there is something that I'm saying that is substantively incorrect, correct me.
All right, can I? So that email you referred to about the destruction of documents, you sent it to me as well.
No, I did not.
Yes, you sent one to me and one to Mr. Roberts.
Okay, here,
All
let
right,
me,
can I please?
Mr. Pittman,
can
I tried
can
very hard
Can I please?
to look.
Because I want to talk about acknowledging your email. And so I acknowledged your email.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did a full-on investigation to see if staff were shredding said documents. Some of those people that we interviewed are sitting in this room today, and they could verify that we questioned them to much of the chagrin of the workers, some of them which it actually brought them to tears. And then you email, in that same line of emails, if you don't remember, you even told employees if they found anything inappropriate that I was doing wrong, that you would pay for their legal defense. So in that same group of emails, so we did respond, and we had that back and forth where you asked them to come forward if they have anything bad about me. And so so if you want to say we didn't talk to you, we did.
Okay, so
And
here's how that went down. Thursday, March 20th, I emailed Mr. Roberts saying I heard about a rumor, asked him to look into it. And he said he's not aware, but he'll make inquiries. Then he responded back later that day, March 20th, to me, but then CCing you. So he's the one who brought you into all of this and other members of staff. And saying different things that, this wasn't going on, okay. I responded back to that, to Chad, left you on CC because at this point you're involved. And I was clarifying that, because Mr. Roberts was saying, oh, well, yeah, sometimes at the front desk they shred things, like a handful here and there. That's, people are getting, there's nothing there. So I just followed up and said, well, the rumor I heard was about like boxes of stuff, this is, and I just want staff to go on record at the next meeting, like, hey, these rumors are flying around, but there's nothing going on. At the next meeting, I'd like staff to go on record confirming documents are accounted for and stored and only destroyed after confirming legal retention. And I said specifically, I think this is important to do because at the last meeting, Mr. Pittman made a comment about that public records on the S drive, who knows, things were kind of in a shambles. I'm like, okay, well, that's a bad impression. Let's get it to the public that things are okay. And then, let's see, and then I sent an email, separately, same time, to just again to Mr. Roberts saying, I would like you to independently confirm this. Again, Mr. Pittman is the one who's in charge of this, so asking him to police himself on this wouldn't make any sense. So please just actually confirm that's it. And then Mr. Roberts emailed me back, CCing a whole bunch of people. And then, I won't get into the tone of it, but he did attach some documents saying, here's some documents. Those were the ones that I looked at, and I had some, and I did, after looking at them, email him back on March 22nd, CCing everybody, because again, he pulled them in, and saying, hey, I never accused anybody, I said it was a rumor, on purpose, being very clear. Let's see, saying I thought it was actually disappointing that he took the email that I wrote to just him, responded back and saw fit to CC all of staff. Let's see. Okay, and that's about it.
I'll bring some closure to that. We asked you.
And then I followed up with, after looking at those documents that you sent, identifying some gaps, identifying some inconsistencies in the documentation itself that I was provided, and asking for specific documents to look into it more, because it didn't seem like Mr. Roberts was super interested in doing anything. So,
When was this? I'm sorry, what month are we talking?
March 24th was my last email where I specifically said, I looked at the documents, and found some inconsistencies, like citing non-existent categorizations of documents, for example. It looked like perhaps that audit records were being shredded before they were supposed to be. And this was based on the documentation. Maybe if you look, if a person went behind it, who knows? But like, this is just the documents. And then, so I followed that, like, here's the problems that I found. Here are the list of documents I would like. For example, records reflecting any efforts to identify or prevent misclassification or non-compliant destruction. Because I'd specifically seen some things in the documentation that looked like that was happening. So what's the audit on that? What's the compliance around that? Are we checking anything? This standard stuff. I never received a response to
Let me
other
bring-
than,
let me bring some-
here's your public records label, we'll get to you at some time, I guess.
Let me bring some closure to that. When you made that report of a rumor, everyone dropped what they were doing to investigate that. Everyone literally stopped such an inflammatory rumor that shredding of documents was occurring. Everyone stopped what they were doing to investigate that.
Well, that's,
We asked,
I
excuse me,
understand,
let me
which is
finish.
why I sent it to just
Let
you
me-
and said it was a rumor.
Let me finish if I could. We ask you, this report of documents, where are they being shredded? Who's shredding it, and where are they shredding it? And if you recall, you refused to disclose that to us, right? That's a fact.
Yes,
You
and you know what's
refused-
also a fact?
So we-
Earlier that same year,
Yeah, let me finish if I
someone was
could.
fired and claimed retaliation against
Let me
the admin-
finish if I could.
the executive.
So
So if
without-
somebody is if somebody is witnessing something, given current past history, it is perfectly defensible, and I will not apologize for saying, there is a rumor, it may be nothing, but
All right,
also,
so-
we've got some problematic, just look into it. If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. I wasn't accusing staff of anything.
People stopped
but
what they were
whistleblow-
doing. Mr. Pittman and I investigated by foot. We went to every employee and said, what do you know about this?
Okay,
Have you ever seen shredding like this? It's a small building. We've got one room where all the paper lives. We've got one little shredding machine. There's one that sits under the front desk. Who's shredding? Has anybody seen any shredding? Anybody heard of any shredding? We had to go interview every employee because you wouldn't tell us where it was or who said it or when it was going on or where it was going on. And it proved to be meritless, and we reported that. And you asked if we had document retention policies. I think someone provided you with a document retention policies and a historical log of when documents were mitigated in the past. No document that's material to anything right now has ever been shredded. To my knowledge, the only things that get shredded are when Ms. Worley, his last name, may print off something that's, she's using it to do a reconciliation, and she uses paper to sit next to something she has at her desk, and then she'll shred that. But the information remains. So people weren't covering anything up. I was terribly interested in it, and I followed through, and I reported back to you, right? And so you invited in your email, you invited any employee of the airport that you would pay the expenses to bring any allegation against Mr. Pittman, any allegation. Now, he's got more grace than I do. I couldn't tolerate having a board member email airport employees saying, I'll pay to get legal defenses for you to bring an allegation against the executive director. He has a lot more grace for working here under those circumstances than I would.
okay, so it's public record. I'm happy to share exactly what it was that I said. This was after you demanding to know who it was who made the rumors, and I'm saying I think you should look into it, regardless of it, and you were not happy with that. And again, these were emails that I sent to just you and responded back. You chose to respond back, putting all the staff on it. So this is what I wrote. It is disappointing that my confidential message was later shared with staff without my consent, as it mischaracterizes my intent and necessarily pulls others into what was a legal inquiry. I want to be absolutely clear, I have not accused any staff member of wrongdoing. On the contrary, I've taken steps, both publicly and privately, to ensure that staff are protected if they come forward with concerns. As you are aware, the airport has previously settled litigation involving allegations of retaliatory termination after a staff member lodged complaints against Mr. Pittman. That history makes it especially important to take anonymous or confidential staff concerns seriously. It also underscores why I decline to disclose the source of the concern and why I continue to advocate for appropriate safeguards. Anonymous reports should not be discounted. They are sometimes the only safe option for employees in sensitive environments. In fact, to ensure staff and former employees can speak freely without fear of retaliation, or financial burden, I recently agreed to cover legal expenses for a former employee to provide an affidavit containing allegations regarding Mr. Pittman's conduct. I share this not to escalate tension, but to affirm my belief that protecting staff and encouraging truthfulness are in the public interest. That is what I wrote.
And you invited all the addressees to disseminate it to all the other employees, did you not?
We've just spent 40 minutes on this subject. When are we gonna get to the other things in the, that I came from? You know, the emergency plan.
Well, unfortunately, Sasha, we have decided at the very start of the meeting that today's meeting would be the financial audit presentation, the forensic audit update, the income statement, and governance, which is what we're doing now. So all of these other things are probably not taking place today. Realistically, we're probably gonna see that within the next 10 to 15 days, provided Courtney sends us the presentations, and then we will do another workshop with those.
Well, because that's what I came to hear, was all these updates
Right.
on the airport operation.
And we do have some really great updates, and I am so excited for 10 to 15 days from now where we can hear them all together.
Yes, and to answer your question, I did say, you know, I was letting, like, look, if, and it's not a problem, to any current staff included in this email, if you have legitimate concerns related to document handling or other matters that you are uncomfortable raising internally, I will support your right to come forward. If legal representation is needed to do so safely, I am willing to help ensure that access is available. No one should have to choose between their job and their integrity. Please feel free to share this email with others. So, yeah, I did send that. I didn't say if you have legitimate concerns, if you feel like it's not safe to come forward, I'm a safe place. That's what I said, and I would say it again. And I have had former employees, and this did not happen in a vacuum. I had former employees coming to me saying things, I didn't know if it was real or not, true or not, but it was things coming from multiple people, which did make me concerned that there might have actually been people who knew things, that were not comfortable with it, that weren't coming forward through regular means, and I wanted people to know that if they wanted to contact me, they could.
Understandable. I think that we are borderline entering a very long and drawn-out mediation session, and while I appreciate getting everything on the table and discussing it, I do think that, again, we should try to move forward just as far as what we're looking to do moving forward, as far as getting information out to us, what is a timely manner, what is our expectation, so it's nice and clear here today in front of Mr. Pittman and our legal counsel, so that we can wrap things up, because it is after 12:30 at this point.
Well, I was like to say, if it is true that information meant for me as a board member was sent to counsel for my business, you know, it should be very easy and fast to send it to me. And I can verify that everything in fact has been addressed. And if it has not been addressed, it should be addressed immediately. So when can I, so we can wrap this up, Mr. Pittman, when can I expect full answers to my questions?
We'll work on it. I'm not going to sit here and give you a date that I got to look at everything again. And then I need clarification from general counsel, because I asked them, and they told me they'll get back to me with regards to if this is you as a private citizen, or is this you as a board member? Because in your same email, you jump around. Your emails are pages in length, and you're asking for different things in different formats.
You don't need to talk to counsel.
Okay.
I am asking for this as a board member. Most of my emails say, as a board member, I have sent a follow-up email days ago saying so that there can be no further confusion, I am asking for this as a board member. So let's please drop that, and you are not committing to actually providing me the information right now.
Would it
Correct?
be, I have a question here. It
Um,
sounds to me like there are some people at this table that are hesitant for fear of maybe your motives. And I'm not saying that you have motives either way. I think you have been very upfront and very clear from the get-go, from what I have seen as when you're acting, in what capacity, and I appreciate that. There was talk of a release form, is that something that you would be interested in signing, saying that whatever you receive, is that, I don't know how this works.
That's an inappropriate question.
Well, if he had asked, and I don't know
And I think it's
what
a
that
highly
looks like.
inappropriate question to ask me to sit here talking about, as a representative of my private business, when I'm here to discuss board matters.
Right. I think the concern is, and again, I'm not questioning your motives, and I apologize if it comes off that way, because I am not. I'm trying to find a middle ground here so that we can get some stuff done.
If I may interject.
Please do.
My high degree of preference would be to table any requests of Ms. Leota to agree or not agree to any legal documentation, as her business is represented by counsel. And as counsel for the authority, we are present, and I don't think they are.
Okay, and I
So I
apologize, I
would-
wasn't trying to,
Well, I don't think you were. I think he was, and I think that's a very fair point. To the extent I'm being asked for something as a representative of my business,
sure.
my counsel's not here. And Mr. Roberts, you should know better. And also, Mr. Roberts, you're not litigation counsel. If there is going to be any discussion, as a board member, I believe all legal matters should be handled and coordinated through general counsel.
Sure.
Mr. Roberts was engaged as a specialist for certain matters at the same time that we engaged general counsel.
And if I may, our firm is working with Modern Arrows, I want to be clear, with Modern Arrows Counsel, and we are in communication with them. So I will take it upon myself to speak with Modern Arrows Counsel and make sure that, you know, the concern is expressed, and then I will report back to the board at a later date. Again, this falls within the confines of council, and I don't think we've crossed that line, but I don't want to go there.
Right, and again, I don't want you to think that I was by any means questioning
No,
your motives here, I never
I
have.
think it's always appropriate when there's a conflict for that to be stated and handled appropriately, and I believe I always have.
From what I have seen, you have always been very
So,
clear.
making some sort of blanket statement that I am not qualified to ask questions or oversee staff because
Sure.
there's an issue that is not even naming the airport right now, is just pure gamesmanship and inappropriate.
So then, Mr. Pittman, do you think that you can go back today and take a look again at the questions that Mrs. Leota had asked you and respond to her within the next 48 hours as far as an update on when you can get that information to her? Because I appreciate that it's gonna take some time, I presume, to go back to March and probably before then to get some of the answers. But if you could,
Well, if
maybe
some of
update.
these documents were already sent, again,
Right.
to Modern Arrows Council, it should be no big deal to say,
right, I don't know everything that you
These have
asked
already
for,
been-
so if
these have
there's
already been-
more, if we can just give an update and say, I should have everything put together in a package for you by X date, I think that would go a really long way for us moving forward together. Would that be acceptable to you?
I want a date certain. Look, I have been sitting, and maybe part of it is just confusion, and there were some documents sent to Modern Arrows Council that should have been sent to me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was lack of communication from staff on that. That can get cleaned up pretty quickly. The remaining parts of it, you know, it's like, here's the thing, when a board member asks for something, we're about to have a new majority, and they're gonna come in, and they may have documents that they want. This is not an acceptable way of approaching it, and even with all of the other context that, you know, Mr. Pittman was complaining about, yeah. Situation situation may have been challenging, probably was and is. Regardless, it's not optional under the law. It's not like, oh, well, I don't have to comply with sunshine or give the board the information it wants because we're busy. It's literally not what the statute says. It has to be a reasonable amount of time, and 140 days is just not reasonable. Period. Even if I was just asking as a member of the general public, I don't think that that's defensible. And I'm not asking as a member of the general public. I'm asking as a board member. So this has gotta change. And like when a board member asks for a time when they're gonna get information, saying a non-answer response is, we gotta do better. You have to do better. You just do.
And I would think moving forward, I know there's only two of us, but anytime a board member reaches out and requests something, I would think that that would move to the top of the priority of who's asking for what, solely because we're not asking typically just for fun, we're asking so that we can better do our job. And so if we could just make sure that any requests that come from us, just acknowledge even that you've got them, I think would go a really far way. And then to say, you know,
Or hey, like you, Casero, all I had was a couple of phone calls with them. There are no emails, there are no memos, there was nothing other than like, I talked to the guy on the phone, he's like, yeah, sure, we can help you with that. And then
Right.
it turns out, no, because conflict of interest, plus they're not procurement counsel.
and remember when Jennifer and I ran for these seats, we both ran very clearly on transparency. And so, while I don't like to micromanage, I do like all the information. And that's not so that I'm telling someone what to do with it, it's just so that we know, because when people come to us and they ask these questions, and then we look stupid because we don't have the answers to them, that's embarrassing as well. So if you could just keep us, I think, as up to date as possible, and anytime there's a request coming through, even if you know that it is absolutely nothing because it was just a phone call, we don't know that. And so to us, it just looks like you don't want to answer us.
And to be clear, I think there's some context here of, I was asking for these things after finding out, that Mr. Pittman was holding down a whole other job and didn't tell the board. So this idea of, I need to ask for the documents to look at it myself because I frankly, I need to do the diligence because I am not sure I can rely on being, told all the relevant information.
And it's very difficult to sit in these seats because we're here for the airport, and sometimes that looks like we're going after someone or something or a position or what have you, but at the end of the day, we're here because for the good of the airport. And so, we're doing our due diligence, how we see, and that differs for both of us, which is the beauty of a board. And so I think we should all just be mindful of that, and that it's not necessarily a personal attack on anybody, but what the situation is, and to make sure that we're moving forward in the airport's best interest. So as far as governance is concerned, as we're moving forward, aside from asking,
Well, I think there should be, this week, full answers to my requests. It sounds like a bunch of documents may already be available, and it's just a matter of like, hey, don't know why you didn't see these. Well, I didn't see them because they weren't sent to me. And there was just poor communication. Okay, what's left should be identifiable with, if those can't be readily rounded up, I don't believe there's any reason why we can't have a timeline. And well, maybe someday in the future you'll find out when you're gonna get your documents, conversation needs to be done. And I don't think that should be the appropriate way to ever respond to a board member who's asking for information. If it can't be quickly rounded up, I think the appropriate response would be working immediately to find a schedule and even if it slips in the future, like, you know, it was harder than we thought, or like, you know, be reasonable, but never, I think immediately, any board member should have some expectation of reasonably when they can get documents.
This Friday, is that a reasonable timeline for you? If-
Yes, I think,
And
you
then
know,
if anything
and
needs to go
again,
past that or whatever, open communication that these are the pieces I'm still working on.
identify
Does that
what's
sound-
already been sent
Okay.
and get it rounded up. What can easily be get done this week, and what's a reasonable timeline for the rest of it?
Okay. And then, again, moving forward.
And I think that should be the pattern for any request by the board
Right,
ever.
right. Our request, I think, needs to move to the top of the food chain, and even if it's just, hey, we're working on it, just something to let us know that you've acknowledged and you're working toward it would be
Yeah, because,
appreciated.
I mean, I did have a conversation with Ms. Laquadera about this, while she was, you know, general counsel for us, and she told me, you could go to the administration office, and you could sit there, and you could make them go get it right now. I didn't wanna do that, I didn't wanna be that disruptive, I was trying to be mindful of staff time and coordination and not be disruptive in these requests. And, you know, so I was trying to do my part, and I'm out of patience.
Understandable. So, for future, I think that we need another workshop sooner rather than later. I know that, you know, I don't know if you'd requested one previously. I've kind of been requesting them on and off for a while, and it was kind of like, well, hang on, we might have some news. Hang on, we
Yeah.
might have some news. So we hung on, and there has been no news. And finally, I sent an email requesting another workshop, and then a week later, I said, too much time has passed. Schedule the workshop. Here's what I want to see. So obviously, you and I couldn't have a conversation to see what you needed to see or what have you. I think that we should plan to have another workshop very soon, and I think it would be in our best interest to, either we can start with this original agenda, or we can start from scratch, but some sort of a something so that we're on the same page with what we want to hear,
Yeah,
in
I
hopes
think,
that we have someone else maybe with us at the
I think
table.
you're right, I think we should have, even if we end up canceling them, I don't know what, part of it might be, we don't know when these appointments are gonna be made, one at a time, all three at once, who knows? But it would be nice to have a series of meetings, so that if we, you know, even if they're like once or even twice a week, so that we can run.
Once they're here, or just
once-
us?
Yeah, cause I know there's some
So,
notice periods.
I know that Courtney and his team have been working on, and I just requested a copy. It might be in our best interest to send one to Mrs. Leota as well, so that we can, I haven't reviewed it yet, so we can review it, working on almost like a board member orientation. Like, here's everything that is ongoing right now, or here are all the projects. They started to piece that together so that we can go through it.
Yeah, and these like, this whole idea of this briefing memo, I mean, those could be updated each week if needed, if there's something material that changes.
Right.
So I don't
but-
think it's like, I think it's necessary work to do in advance of the next board coming up, which is part of the reason I was so frustrated that it wasn't done ahead of this. Cause it's like, what happens if we have someone appointed tomorrow?
Right. So I think the intention, I don't wanna speak for you guys because I know it was a conversation that we had kind of just had, was doing almost like like when we started, we had like our orientation meeting, with the executive director at the time, and we sat in a room with him, and he went over, or at least with me, he went over all of the things that the airport was doing. And I think that Courtney and his team have put, or, I haven't gone through it, but it's a pretty thick presentation of things, that perhaps, I think the thought was maybe like a day or whatever, that we just spend the day together in this room as a board, just kind of going through all of it. So again, maybe it's series, maybe it's just a full fun retreat day for the 5 of us. I don't know what that will look like.
Yeah,
But I think if we send a copy of that to Mrs. Leota as well, so that her and I both have the opportunity to kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb and see if we're on the same page with what you're presenting to the rest of.
Yeah, and I
Board.
think that's a good idea for like factual, like state of.
Right.
State of the body sort of things. I also think, given the tumultuous recent history, and allegations made about conflicts and this and that, that it would be important, because if I'm in the shoes of a board member coming in, there's all sorts of, you know, rumor and gossip and this and that, and it's not great. We're in a governance crisis. And I would, if I was a board member coming in, want some, what's the word, neutral findings of fact. Like, I don't think it would be appropriate for me as a board member telling the incoming board members how to think about things. I appreciate the optics, but I think that all the more reason to have information they can rely on from a disinterested third party. So I would, to that end, I think it would be useful to have general counsel, if they would be able to do some sort of.
They don't look super excited right now about the prospect of that, and I can't imagine why, so.
So, if I may, I bring this up, we are the board's council. We, right now, take direction from Mr. Pittman as there is no board, but we represent the agency. If Mr. Pittman would like us to help put together a governance package, we're willing to do so. However, our rates, while discounted, add up quickly. And this would not be a project that would be inexpensive to come up with a whole full-fledged proposed governance model. We can work with Mr. Pittman to come together. We are happy to do that. I just would not want anybody at the board to then look at us and go.
You would surprise me, and I would call you out on it,
Yes.
yes. That's exactly what would happen. Thank you for
I didn't want to say Ms.
acknowledging
Chapman,
that.
you,
It's
but,
okay.
you know.
Acknowledge it.
Mr. Chairman, can I add an
Yes,
additional
please.
axis for all this? In addition to just informing y'all, we need a record, because when we make a presentation like these that were
Right.
teed up today, it puts the community on notice.
Right.
It puts our regulatory agencies on notice that we are acting, we're moving, we're aware of what we are obligated to do. So one of the urgencies is not just for y'all's benefit,
Right.
but for the community stakeholders as well. So there's, you know, we haven't done that in quite a while. And the 139 audit, the T-hanger compliance, all those things, it's timely for the community to hear from the airport executive director about it as well, not just for y'all's purposes.
And I think that, historically speaking, we as a board have gotten really caught up, how do I say this, in the politics of all of it, in a lot of the operations of the airport. Well, they're still going on and they're still happening, the public isn't seeing that part of it anymore. So I do think it's important in our next workshop that we do get these updates, because some of them are exciting things.
Yeah, I think my big concern coming in here was business as usual, updates, good to have, not our top priority to talk about today. Also, again, broken record over here, you know, if it's important enough to update the community about, they should be able to have written materials to rely on. You know, it just, only if they have to be sitting in this room or request a transcript later, I find that insufficient. I think, you know, our approach has always been materials get posted to the website, and people aren't expected to come in cold and get surprised. I just don't think that's a good way to go about things. So, yes, by all means, let's have those, let's have them soon, as soon as we can get those written materials out and schedule the meeting.
I am genuinely concerned about a few things, timeline related. I am genuinely concerned about these budget meetings that need to happen. Can we borrow a county commissioner and have them vote with, is there something we can do? Because not
So-
only do we need to vote on that, but I know for certain there are a lot of grants that have timelines and they need things built by X date, and if we look backwards, we're not gonna get them built, and then it's all just gonna go up in flames and not on my watch. So what do we need to do?
So, I have looked, and I have not talked about this with my colleague, but anticipating this question was going to happen, I did reach out to the Governor's Office of Appointments again this morning in anticipation of the meeting. I'm hoping for a response from that.
Okay.
There is one ripcord, pull the emergency parachute option that at this point, because there can be no board consensus, it would probably need to come from Mr. Pittman. You can sue the state of Florida.
Oh, for the love.
And demand an appointment because, or request an appointment. Basically, you're forcing judicial interaction. There's an obligation. Yes.
A mandamus.
A writ of mandamus action, you can force them to act. I am not suggesting that's the right thing to do.
Good.
Yeah.
However,
Another one if you could, please.
it is the only thing that I have been able to come up with that would force action. I have no doubt, for the record, I want to be clear, that the governor's office is moving as expeditiously as possible.
Sure.
However, we do have federal
We're
deadlines.
getting close, and it's very scary for some of us
Yes.
who have to put their names on these things.
So I would suggest, if I may be so bold, that we reschedule another meeting for next Monday, same time, or other times. And let me rephrase, I don't care when you meet, but at least by then,
Yeah, we need 10 days. Go
yeah.
ahead. Do we?
No,
I don't know.
Seven.
Okay,
I think you
great.
need seven under a special
It'll be
meeting
the
workshop.
15th,
15?
15th of September.
15, yeah. So we could certainly do that, and if we don't have any other updates,
Yeah, so.
it would probably be the 16th would be the earliest, because you wouldn't post the
Yeah,
agenda
I'm skipping
until,
centers in kindergarten today. I'm
Yeah,
not skipping that next week.
I'm out of, because of course, I'm out of town the 17th, 18th, and 19th.
So the 16th?
So Monday or the 15th or 16th, which is next Monday, Tuesday, is fine. But later in the week is not, I'm not available.
and just for clarity, so my firm knows what are we being, are we being requested to assist Mr. Pittman in putting together the governance stuff at this
No.
point? Okay,
No, I mean,
just for
what I-
clarity. Just for clarity.
Just to be clear, what I was actually more thinking of was more of a maybe going back to the factual record of what's happened in the last however many months,
Got it.
and saying, well, we find this is information that is
Right. I think
credible or reliable.
The goal was like, here's our timeline, here's what you missed.
Here's like real issues, like, because there's lots of rumors floating around.
Without
What's
anyone's
real, what's
opinion
not.
put into it, so that there's
So
no.
Mr. Pittman is able to direct us to do that, and we can do that.
Okay.
Again, it will take time and effort, because we're essentially recreating history to some degree.
If I may.
Yep.
All right, so the board orientation was not going to discuss history. We was going to say where we currently stood right now with the
Right.
grants and stuff like that, because again, we're being neutral. We're not trying to
Right, I
bring
think
up
these were two
anything.
separate
Yeah,
things.
so we're doing
we're
an
on board with
orientation,
that.
yeah, to say what the general counsel's role, aviation, a special attorney, my role, and what projects and different things and the financials and stuff like that we
I think
currently.
some of the concern might be, there's been a lot of coverage about a lot of things, right? Kind of that political side that I mentioned before, and it would be very nice if the new board could come in, read the facts, make their own perhaps opinion, and not the opinion based off of any of us here at this table or what has been perceived in the media, so that they can come in, have the facts, and come to their own conclusions based on those facts. Am I
Yeah,
am
because I
correct
think
in that?
it's.
It's unfair for us to.
The board has to come in and give staff oversight. So I think, in a lot of ways, it would be inappropriate for the board to only have staff to rely on some of these issues, considering the history. So, like, having that third party, like, here's the background, and that way, there's, like, it just is what it is.
So, effectively, and I'm just gonna ask the question, if we're asked to do this, and actually, Mr. Pittman, I just recall this is a category, this is exempt category, so you'd be fine if we went over the 35, because engaging private legal services is an exempt. But are you looking for, and I'm trying to clarify the ask, is Mr. Cortman being asked to ask us to do what effectively amounts to an investigation/report summary of how we got here?
That's my intent, yes.
And If that is the request, from what date? From the block resignation, prior to that? What is the ask that Mr. Pittman would then ask?
I think that depends on what you think you're gonna charge us for that. Like realistically, because I don't know if you guys remember, but like 2 hours ago, we went over these finances. And while I appreciate the work you do, I need numbers.
Yeah, the answer, it could range from 15,000 if this is a summary report with no real fact finding to, I've been a parts of investigations where it's 60, 70, $80,000.
Great, I'm not on board for $67,000 or $80,000. Nope, that's not for
The
me.
new board might be, but as an initial matter.
As an
to
initial matter-
Get something ready for the.
That's what I'm saying.
That,
I don't think that's a
I agree.
decision for the two of us to make because
Nope.
I know what the history is because I've been here for
I just
it.
want to be
So, I'm
clear
good
that
there,
if you're
and I appreciate
suggesting to
that.
Mr. Pittman to do
I'm
something,
not-
I
I'm
think
not
there needs to be
suggesting it. You hear me,
clarity.
yeah?
No, I'm thinking something more of that de minimis to like have something to these new board members to say, we see you, we know that you, like, here's something that they can immediately rely on from council in coming in and having
So-
that, and then if they wanna dig deeper and they
I
wanna
think that
extend
might
it.
be a discussion best held for either our next workshop, so I can try to formulate what that would look like for us, and or when the new board gets here to see what they are looking for, so that we know where to navigate this kind of thing. Because again, that is realistically, it's a large cost, and I don't know if we remember, we were complaining about fuel costs 2 hours ago to then facts. And I understand there's a difference and there's an importance, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse if we don't know exactly what we're gonna be
But if
looking for in
The
that.
new board comes in and feels like it needs to make major decisions about governance, having, they're gonna wanna have the facts.
Right,
They're gonna have reliable facts.
right.
And I think it's fair to assume that board members coming in are going to be having those sorts of
Sure.
considerations.
So can I add something? For the sake of transparency, I think what we're concerned with is the board members getting bad gouge, all right? So what we were planning on doing is having it open to the public. So the board orientation was gonna be all of us sitting here together. General counsel has a copy of what we already gathered, right? So we're just sticking to facts. We're not talking about any legal stuff, that's general counsel's job. I'm here to talk about grants and operations around the airport and fuel sales and operations and runways in 139. That's all. But we need to bring them up to speed because from what I've been told, as soon as they get appointment, they can come to work. And so if we want them to vote on some of these initiatives that past board members were in agreement with, and to see if they are in agreement with it as well, those things need to be explained. And so we also looked at it as a refresher course for the current board members who might not know all the ins and outs of some of these things or want to be reminded, right? So this was gonna be full transparent. I didn't want one-on-ones initially, right? I wanted to be right out and open for everybody because I don't want people saying, hey, Courtney has them first and he's trying to sway them in a certain direction. Nope. No, and I think that's what's being insinuated here is with the legal, and that's fine, because I would think the same way.
I am making a very clear distinction between businesses, like the everyday or operations of a
Right.
business, things that have to be done to keep the lights on, which are getting critical at this point.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to minimize that. There are, like you said, grants and things that have to get done. That just would be the case no matter what else, considering we're in. I'm talking about all those other things that aren't the ordinary day-to-day operations of the airport that should be of extreme concern to me, and I imagine will be, like, the very reason that those 3 new people are coming in. Right?
If I
Fact.
may also, it would be helpful, I think, at this point, to push the governor's office if we had outlines, and I know we've talked about them, Courtney, but something on the briefing memos. You could use the briefing memos saying there is a drop-dead critical date, we must make a decision by this date. And then I think it's a separate conversation around governance. Ultimately, it would be my recommendation that the board, I don't think you have a standing governance committee, so it would be an ad hoc committee of the board that would probably be put together. I suspect it would be the full board, but that's the way it should work. that would discuss more large-scale governance items. But to the extent that it's helpful, I think in the board orientation packet, there would be kind of those line items of governance issues that probably need to be discussed. And I think Mr. Roberts would probably agree with me on this. Some of your policies and procedures probably need to be updated, like your workshop procedures, your meetings.
Most of our policies.
Well, and it goes more to, we've now gone through, for lack of a better phrase, a constitutional crisis. Let's not have that problem again. That's up to the board members, sir.
And I know there's a hand up there, but just while we're on this, just a point of clarification from Ms. Liana that I think would be helpful to the staff. Some of these regulatory items, the presentations, there really aren't any written materials. It's just really was gonna be a verbal update. There really aren't any written material. So what would be helpful to you to feel prepared before you receive a verbal presentation about what's been going on?
I think the format provided by general counsel and the briefing memos is the way to do it.
All right, so that's gonna need to be created.
And can I just,
And if it's, again, the briefing memos may in their outline say, here's what the board has to vote on, that where you would just say, this is informational only, update. I mean, I think we can work with that
Okay.
structure and modify it as needed when it's an informational only meeting.
Excuse me, but I feel that this meeting's message is that the community stakeholders are being kicked to the curb. We really, really need to know what the updated operations are, and I think we should know, and I think the board members should know what's going on operations-wise. And also, there's so many things, Courtney as executive director is in charge of operations. There's so many things that he can do without board oversight. And I really want to be updated on all these things from, 5 down to 11. And I don't understand why the community stakeholders are being treated like they are.
Well, we spent a good 40 minutes going over that in detail. I agree that the public deserves information, and it's more of a, what is a sufficient quality to make it actually be a real meeting? And I don't think it's worth rehashing.
As a stakeholder, not just only the community, but as a stakeholder, I feel that from an operational standpoint, how do we get our messages into not only Mr. Pittman, but also the board, if necessary, general counsel? Not all the time can we be at these meetings, but we need to get our information because we are the ones on the day-to-day operation that get affected by it.
Yeah.
Not only fuel, but all the other items. So what is your suggestion? And, we'd like to stay here for the next 4 hours and go over all of them, but none of us will. But how can we get our information, our messages in to you folks?
Well, I thank you for the question. I think there's a couple of different ways that I've seen. One, of course, is emailing staff. Anytime a member of the public contacts the staff and asks for information, it's a public records request. It doesn't have to be super formal. If you're looking for a copy of the policy or something, just say, hey, can you send this to me?
No, I'm talking about getting information that we have, that we
Oh,
know is
the other way?
relevant to you.
We're talking about updates.
No,
To tell you that we have this information, we are experiencing this, good, whatever, or we need to address this. There's many items in that compliance policy that date all the way back to the 60s.
You're welcome at any point. So our email addresses are on the website. You are absolutely welcome to email us at any point. Of course, you can always start with Mr. Pittman or someone else in the office, but just know that our emails are publicly there for you to utilize at any time you want to. And then, at least for me, obviously this agenda, it was the email I sent to Mr. Pittman and said, here are the things that I want updates on and I want the public to be updated on, and that's where this list came from. So if you send something to me at least and say, I want answers on this, I'm gonna say to you, I've sent it along, when I get answers, I'll let you know, or they're putting a presentation together, it'll be at the next meeting.
So that answers, well, doesn't answer. At the next meeting, when those items that the gentle lady talked about are going to be discussed, is there going to be an opportunity for stakeholders in particular to give inputs
Yeah,
at that time?
yes,
I
if
think
it's
we
a
always
workshop,
welcome
if it's-
public comment.
yeah, if it's, it depends on the format. If it's,
I understand.
if it's public, if it's a workshop, I guess you just have there's always gonna be public comment. Sometimes it's general for the whole topic, and it can be whatever part you wanna speak to. I actually encourage, and again, why I harp on having materials out in advance is if you as a member of the public see the written materials in advance, which would be on the website, you can follow up in writing and say, here's the information I have.
Very clear today.
Right, yeah, but it's like, it's, what can you do with that? That might be helpful, it might address your concern, it may raise a concern, which you could then email to staff and/or members of the board and say, here's what I'm seeing, here's my pain point, here's what I would like to hear more about. Those are all very, very appreciated
But many of our
feedback.
comments may also involve having counsel present, because they may be interpretive of either FARs or other policies that are within the authority.
Yeah,
So I'm asking for, at the next workshop, those items, we have the opportunity to speak for whatever limited amount of time.
yes, there will be a public comment of some shape or form at each meeting, be it a workshop or a full formal board meeting.
I would suggest if you have specific concerns about these, because I know in public comment, a lot of times, like, we don't just give an answer back to you, and that has to be beyond frustrating. So if there's something that comes up prior to us having the conversation, and you say, I know I'm gonna have this question regardless, feel free to send that along, so that I mean, any of us can read it and say, hey, how about this? And then maybe that question will be answered for you, instead of having to sit through our really long, drawn-out discussions. You'll have the answer that you need. That would be my recommendation. If you have a different suggestion on how it would be best for you to get information to us or what have you, just
Yeah,
let us know.
especially to your point, if it's something regulatory and it might require council to look at it, you know, to the extent any of that can be flagged ahead of time, that'll allow staff and council time to be prepared to address that at the meeting, as opposed to, oh, well, we'll have to get back to you because we have to look into it.
Thank you.
So I would say just moving forward here, as far as an agenda for the next one.
Well, I did have one more governance point that we didn't talk about, and that's, I've got and again, I'm not sure we can direct anything, but then again, also council works for the board, not staff, so I know we can't vote on anything.
Right, but I think right now, just for the record, I think right now, because he works for the airport, not for the board or the staff, and since there is no real board, he has to report directly
Yeah,
to Mr. Pittman,
so at least
right?
I can
Who,
put it
me?
out.
Yeah. Is that who you're taking direction from at this
I mean,
point in
at
regards
this point,
to
an
all of
individual board member is always welcome to reach out to us
Right.
as counsel, to the authority, ask questions.
But as far as a direction to
But
take
for
action.
direction to take action at the moment, that's coming through Mr. Pittman.
Okay.
Unless it is a board member that's asking us to assist with what I'd call a ministerial function. How soon can we do a meeting?
Right.
Or do you have this document from a legal perspective?
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on where we were.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I'll just raise it as a concern, because it seems like there's nothing that can be definitively directed. And I've had this concern for a year plus, and that is coordination of outside legal services. Every company I've ever worked for, there was a general counsel, be that in-house or your general lawyer usually. And then that person was the, call it control tower, right? That person decided what to do, and if they couldn't handle it, the general counsel identifies and manages specialist counsel. And that was always my understanding and intent as a board member. I understand just one of five, but that was always my intent and understanding when the board initially retained the Blocker firm as general counsel, which had a flat rate, monthly flat rate, and Mr. Roberts as specialist aviation counsel for aviation-specific matters, not at a flat rate, but at an hourly billable. I found, personally, it seemed like there was a lot of scope creep. We saw it in meetings, it happened, and I always thought that that was inefficient, to say the least, from a financial perspective, because general counsel was flat rate at the time, and just not benefiting the airport at all, and sometimes working at cross purposes with general counsel, didn't know necessarily what aviation counsel was doing because the coordination wasn't there. I, again, understand full board's not here, no direction can be made, but I strongly prefer the traditional model of it goes to general counsel, who then manages legal services in coordination with the client. And I don't believe Mr. Pittman should be going directly to Mr. Roberts for anything directly now that we have general counsel. And that should all be coordinated. That's my personal opinion. And I understand this is my personal opinion, and Mr. Pittman doesn't have to follow it, but I think that that would be wise and the best course.
So you think, I want to be clear on what you're saying. If Mr. Pittman has an aviation-related question, you want him to go to general counsel and then to aviation?
Go always first to general counsel, who will decide.
I don't
Who,
know
what, when,
that I
and where.
necessarily agree with that for aviation. If it's an aviation-specific question, why wouldn't we go to the aviation counsel
Well,
to
I think
answer
that's become the issue here at this airport, is because perhaps one could argue that everything is aviation-related because it's an airport. And you could probably make an argument that anything is somehow related to aviation law, and I think that destroys the entire precept of having general counsel and aviation specialists.
I understand that, and
So I'm
maybe we
worried
need to
about
be
that.
clear on that distinction, because my fear is now we're gonna pay general counsel to call our aviation counsel that's sitting at the same board table. Like, are we going to double pay to have a question? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just wanna make sure that we are being as time and cost efficient and effective as possible with this. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, I'm sorry, if we're gonna go to general counsel to start everything, why do we have Mr. Roberts sitting here?
That's an excellent question for the next
So-
board when we.
So
have
I'm just putting that there. I think
Firstly.
he's been beneficial.
And
that's not a
I
secret,
think at
so-
times it's been cross purposes and inefficient because we had
So maybe
general
we need to
counsel.
just make some clear boundaries, and then once the new board gets here, we can make those clear boundaries together and make a decision on what that looks like, moving forward for us.
Mr. Chapman, may I interrupt? And I think it's very germane to what you're discussing right now. I have to be careful, counsel. We, the Flying Club, had a recent meeting with Mr. Pittman, part of his staff, and Mr. Roberts. And it was about items, okay? And we discussed that. I feel that if we were to take the path of that having to first go to general counsel and then to Mr. Roberts, that it's gonna delay any decision that I may need in working or in operations of the Flying Club.
Well,
So.
Yeah, I
let me
appreciate
finish-
that.
No, let me finish first,
Okay, go
please.
ahead.
I've been respectful of your folks. So I would advise not to do that, and I trust that Mr. Pittman and stakeholder in delaying any of the information or decisions that are needed. Does that make sense?
Well, I can appreciate that. I think the nuance there might be, that's assuming that it gets delegated to Mr. Roberts instead of just being handled by general counsel. And my preference is general counsel handles everything unless they can't, and then they bring in a specialist. That's
Agree
it.
and disagree.
That was my intent as a board member when general counsel and aviation counsel was initially selected. And again, I understand that is not something that I can direct, or, but that is my perspective. And I think even in recent times, I got an email from someone saying, I saw the airport attorney and Mr. Pittman doing X, Y, Z, and I emailed general counsel, and there's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So we literally
So it
have
sounds
one
like we
hand
just
not
have to
knowing
be
what the other hand is doing.
A little bit clearer on our expectations, moving forward, because as of right now, now it's 1:20. I know I sound like Big Ben today, but it's 1:20, and thank God we didn't go through all these 11 things, because I don't even know if we're at number 4 at this point.
I think we're
getting good work done, but I think that we need to try to move on at a little bit of a speedier pace, so that we can get through these things.
Okay, but that's all I had to say about the attorney issue. I do consider it a serious issue, one that's been bothering me for about a year.
Right, and I appreciate that, I hope, anyway, that you feel heard today, because I think that we have had some.
I was very loud, so I'm glad I was
No,
heard.
no, that's not what I meant, that you had adequate time to be able to take the things that you've been holding on to for this long to get off. I think that, we both started off, like, ready, just because the frustration, the pure, genuine frustration of having no communication and not being able to do anything. Because we do love this place and we do want to see it flourish and grow. But I hope that you feel heard. I hope that you got some things out on the table that we can work toward fixing for the future of us.
Yeah, I mean, I am concerned about the recent history where you've got, executive director saying he's taking direction from a subset of the board outside the sunshine. That cannot be going forward.
Right, and as of now, there's nothing we can do about it at this point, so I think that it would be in our best interest to discuss the things that we can control for right now, and that would be the agenda for the workshop that will hopefully take place on the 16th. I am comfortable, obviously, with numbers 3 through 11 on the current agenda, and there were a couple other things I wanted to add, but we might not have time to get to those moving forward. I would like to see a detailed list of what we've asked legal counsel for versus what has been done for services since Douglas Law Firm resigned. I know that Mr. Roberts always gives like a really in-depth invoice, and I appreciate that. I don't necessarily mean you, but I do mean that gap that we had before. $200,000 is a whole lot of money, and to incur late fees knowing full well that we are unable to make a vote to write a check is very frustrating. So I'd like to see the detail of what all of that was. I'd also like an update from Mr. Pittman on, there was a time, and correct me if my memory is not serving me properly here, that State Representative Kendall came in, she spoke to us in this room about bringing an aviation academy here with the promise of something like $250,000, something along those lines, and I have heard literally nothing about that since. I don't know if you have, but I would like an update on that. Is it happening? What does that look like? Anything would be great. Again, my concerns obviously for the budget meeting, and I think that's it for my current concerns looking forward. Is there anything that you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got, again, some of these are things that you just need a full board to deal with.
Right.
I think there have been a number of things brought to the board's attention, like, hey, we're working on this, that, maybe we shouldn't be. And I think council's gonna have to look at this are there any decisions? And again, this would be one of those things that I was like thinking like some kind of summary, some quick, the $15,000, $20,000, like, are there votes that have been taken over the last, like, since the allegations came out, talking about, like, if there are particular votes
Yeah, I
that
see
need to
what you
be redone to cleanse potentially, what are those votes? Like, and that
How
is,
do we do that?
well, I
Like,
mean,
is that,
if it's
do we
brought.
have to do, what I'm trying to say is, I don't know how I'm trying to say this. I don't want it to look like we're just gonna go and say, well, that didn't go my way, so now I want X, Y, and Z to change. Is there something formal that we have to do aside from saying, hey, I wanna bring this to a vote again?
The answer to your question is no.
Okay.
You as the board have the prerogative to bring something back and change direction.
Perfect.
If there are specific things that you'd like us to look at, that's great. If the question is, can we go back, again, I'm just trying to clarify timelines, we can work with Mr. Pittman, go back to blocker forward, blocker prior, as to what decisions were made. I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think there are corporate resolutions that were drafted or signed by anybody. In an ideal world, that is always done. It's part of the books, it's part of the records, it's how the agency takes action. We do have the meeting minutes, which that could certainly be recreated to have them dated. But again, you wouldn't be able to ratify those until you have a full board.
I think there've been historically a category of things we did resolutions for. I think it was grant acceptances
Right.
historically.
Yeah, there were-
Otherwise, it was just a.
There were a few resolutions, but yeah, it was always.
I mean, ideally, it would be the grant resolutions.
Yeah.
You should always have a resolution adopting your budget.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think we've done,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, those are,
Yeah.
But you
the
mean
basic
perhaps
ones.
just some of the other general things that we've voted on?
Yeah, and it's,
Okay.
it's this idea that if there's, if there's risk around governance, history, in like recent
Mhm.
that might behoove the airport to have another vote on any of this, because if a party says, well, that was not a valid vote because there were sunshine law violations
Right, I hear you.
in
Okay.
connection with
I
that,
see.
Okay.
or even if someone's making that argument, are there things that we should just bring back to the board?
Sure.
For,
So we know that we're
to
transparent. and open
not
and-
have that
Mhm.
as a potential argument out there, and what, if that's a real risk or not, I don't know. I mean, I'm not the expert on governance law in Florida,
Sure.
but if, that is one of the questions I have. Is there stuff that we should be looking at for those kind of issues? Given our unique set of facts, that may be additional to-dos for the board above and beyond, like, hey, we gotta get a budget, which is a real thing.
Now, is this something you think that our legal counsel needs to do, or is this something that you, not that I wanna say do all the work, but would you just go back through and say, here are things I know we voted on that I'm uncomfortable with, I wanna bring those back up to the board? Like, is that really something that we need to go to general counsel and say, please go through everything we voted for, and you identify what you think we need to re-vote on, or is that something that you and I would, on our own, go back through and say, here are some things I'm uncomfortable with how this went? There are a handful of things that I am uncomfortable with how they went.
Okay, yeah, so maybe the answer is both. Maybe if there's a quick answer from council, like, you should just look at everything you voted on, because that's just, would be my recommendation, if that was council's recommendation, not saying it would be. That would be easy. And if they're like, well, if someone on the board thinks it's high enough risk, you could. And then it might be like,
I just
back
feel
down
like
to
you
the
and
board
I are,
members to look at.
that we're invested enough that between the two of us, I have a feeling we could come up with a pretty secure list of things that you and I were uncomfortable with how they went. I don't know that that's necessarily something we need to say, hey, general counsel, look at everything we voted on since this date and tell me what you think we should
So-
do, because it needs to be what we think we should vote on.
we are happy to look at it from a pure legal perspective. Was there something that should have had a formal resolution that is required by statute, law, or whatever else? That'll be a relatively easy project, because we can take the meeting minutes, go back and look what votes were there, quick analysis. Any substantive matters that you all would like to bring back up, because you were not comfortable with how the vote transpired with the then current board,
Go Betsy.
would be y'all's decision.
So I should be clear when I say, it's not that I didn't like how it went for me, so I wanted to bring it back up. My question, I guess, is if I feel like there was a conflict of interest that was not disclosed prior to making a vote, that would be more along the lines of things that I would be bringing up to say, I think that we missed the mark here because there were some disclosures that were not made.
Usually there's an aggrieved party that comes forward, so like, somebody didn't get a bid award, for example, or a selection process, and you wanna impeach that process by saying there was a sunshine law violation. So usually it's driven by someone aggrieved. You always have the inherent ability to change direction on policy
Make a
going
motion.
forward, but if
There-
it's,
Okay.
but I'm concerned that you're looking for a conflict that may not exist.
No, I'm looking to try to avoid surprises. And if, council says, hey, there's this thing here and there's serious questions around this, and you could have an aggrieved party come out of the woodwork,
Right.
maybe you should look at this one again. And you could come up with the exact same vote, but this time you don't have any of those other arguments around it, those kind of things. That's what I was thinking about more so, and if it turns out that that's, gilding the lily a little much, then that's fine. I can calm down on that issue if it's not something that council thinks is really where the most of the energy should be put. We have plenty of other things to work on, but if it's a serious issue, I don't want to ignore that as a possible. Something that we may need to just look into at least a little bit to check the box and say, okay.
I would say then that it first would fall on you and I to go through separately and say, hey, is this a red flag or is this not? Is this something we should look at again? And then, we can individually send that and say, here are the ones we have some questions on, what do you think? Instead of sending them to go through and do the research and look through our
Yeah.
minutes to see everything we've ever
Yeah, that
voted on.
sounds, maybe not.
That might be a little bit
'Cause
more.
I think the folks that have been here 2.5 years, y'all are gonna know, the two of you will know.
Yeah, that's what we're pretty invested, and so,
Yeah, some of the issues frankly, the ones that I had some discomfort with were not necessarily votes. They were topics of potential activities that the board that Mr. Pittman brought and said, here's a deal that we might do, I'm talking to so-and-so about it. That I think maybe I'd like to see a list of what all of those are. And I think the new incoming board would
Sure.
want to be able to get their hands around quickly. Like, for an example, I'm not comfortable with the Tom Solano deal. The history there, as I recall, was he came and said, I would like to do a land lease because I'm going to build a hangar for private use. It's not going to be commercial, but it's going to be right on the row, shovel-ready land where you have a bunch of commercial stuff, but I will build it, and it will be private use.
right.
And that ended up getting discussed, and then somehow that changed to, the airport's gonna get a loan, is going to build a hangar, and that is then gonna turn around and lease it to Mr. Solano for, and.
I don't know I think that was spoken about, but I don't know if there's truth to
That's
that
not
at this
I can
point.
help clarify that. As you described, Mr. Solano came and did something like a Me Too request for Mr. Who's our other big, Mr. Duke's hangar, right?
Oh.
Did a Me Too request, right, literally next, we're looking right behind us. We prepared such a Me Too lease for him, as you described. It was gonna be for his own private use, for an additional aircraft. He never wanted to execute on it, never wanted to pay the money for it. But it sort of, I think, triggered that with all the, difficulty we were having on the east side, mitigation credits, we did have some shovel-ready land right here. And so Mr. Pittman brainstormed a shift in focus to, if there's need, could the airport authority build such a facility and then do an RFQ for the highest and best use, right? So it would just be like Hangar 5. We owned Hangar 5, we put it on Atlantic's lease.
So not necessarily promised to an individual should we build it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's how it evolved. And, but right now, I think and just correct me if I mischaracterize it, but I don't think there's, the cost to do that is very stiff.
Correct.
We don't have a grant for it. We don't have funds for it. And absent a private party coming forward and saying, I'll do it and I'll fund it, it's gone and it's over.
Okay, so yeah, those are the sorts of things that would be good to have an update on, because you hear like, maybe this is happening,
Yeah.
and then it gets resolved, and I, as a board member, don't really know, but I was always very uncomfortable with it turning from a land lease into a commercial lease.
Let me build this for you.
That completely went around the commercial wait list. I saw major
Right.
alarm bells there, like,
Yep.
why are we doing this? That doesn't make sense. But it sounds like we're not
Yep,
doing that.
Correct.
So it's those kind of things. Like, also, there was something that was floated up to the board about 1,000 acres of something to do a fire and rescue, like, playground. And
Yeah, yeah.
and I mean,
Yes, that's all I can say, yes, I remember
right?
a
And it's
discussion
like
about this.
the board didn't seem super excited about it. I don't know if staff is still working on it. I would be surprised if they were, because it doesn't match our
Well, I think that's part of the
or
problem, there's a lot of
master
things that
plan.
You can stand.
we got really lost in the politics of a lot of things, and not the day-to-day stuff, like Courtney and his team, they're getting things done, and you're gonna see that on the 16th. They're doing some great things, but there are these other things, like this aviation, like there's all these things that we were told about, and then there's been no follow-through, there's been no update. And I'm not saying that's a airport problem, I'm saying that there are some outside people that were supposed to be doing things and they didn't, so if we could get an update on, are they dead projects? And that's fine too, if it's
Or
never
does-
happening, that's great, but just let us know, because in the back of our head, we've got these projects, we don't know what's happening.
And the new board coming in might look at that and say, and may direct staff, no, we're not doing 1,000 acres undefined to somebody when we have a master plan, we have an ALT, it doesn't fit either of those.
Mm-mm.
And no, sorry, which would probably be my, look, my recollection of that board meeting was that nobody on the board was super excited about it. I was like, okay, but I don't,
It had its, pros and cons, but I
but
don't think
yeah, it's like
it was
there's.
overwhelmingly well received.
Yeah, so it's like, it may just be like, hey, if we're gonna even think about something like that, don't we have to amend the master plan first? Because we have a master plan, I mean.
I literally don't think there's anything like that cooking.
But that's what I mean, so
On
we
the
were told
airport.
about it, right?
Yeah.
And then it just, we never heard about it
Right.
again. So is this still happening and we still don't know?
Can I respond? Because a lot of our meetings, we never got to the staff reports. So so I didn't get a chance to update. I mean, if you think about it, if you go back to the last few meetings we had.
Well, maybe we can flip it on its head. Give us a
'cause-
list of everything that is active
So-
in
Oh, boy.
discussions or negotiations, something that is like working towards a term sheet or anything like that, so we know what is happening. And we can, if it's not on the list, we can forget about
Can you
it.
be more specific? I'm sorry, because I want to give you what you're
Projects
asking
like
for.
that.
Because,
Like right now, on that list
So,
would be
General Counsel's
this
working with,
aviation academy.
General Counsel's
Development,
working with
land
Rooms to
deals
Go.
in particular.
yeah, because that's frozen because the county, I'll give you the updates. Okay, I'll try to come up with a list. And how about we do it this way?
Because I
Since it's
heard
just
there
us
was
two.
something cooking maybe with Rooms to Go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
we
there
are.
was, there was something
So-
with this like fire
It's really
thing
difficult
that
for us
is-
to hear
we don't
this
know
from
what's real
other
or not.
people, I think is what we're getting at, because we hear from other people, and I don't know, if you guys have kids that play telephone all the time, but I do, and so I know how quickly things change, and so when we hear things, hey, did you hear this is what's happening at the airport, and we didn't hear it from somebody trusted, in the office, that's concerning to us, and again, that's how miscommunication gets out there,
I
like
100% agree
what
with
we
you.
just had.
Yeah, the new board members coming in, I think just having like a very organized, here are the hangar deals, lane deals, like any like, look, if it's a $5,000 contract because you wanna get a different person to come in and fix a widget, that's not what I'm talking about. It's
Strategic things.
strategic things
Yeah.
that are probably going to require board approval to, anyway, it's like, maybe those are things that
The
the board.
earlier we know, the better for us.
Right, the
I
board
like
might
to
say, no,
digest.
they might have questions about, like, should we not even do that? Should that be an RFQ instead of dealing with one private individual? Like, whatever it is, have it, someone can get the arms around and have as like a living list,
Mhm.
because, you know.
And
what-
honestly, I think it would
What happens if
just
we
be-
get like, someone could be like, the lightning, lightning strikes, the heavens part, and we get like somebody appointed tomorrow.
Right.
Today, they're gonna need to come in and have this
Well, I think it's
information.
just important in general for us to have one, because as we know, well, I appreciate the staff that we have right now. Anything can happen at any time, and so it's just like having a policy in place. If we just know what's going on and we have a running list of what's going on, just like we have for the public record request, you have a list of what it is and what the status is. I think that would make the two of us at least feel a lot better and a little bit more in the know, because again, I don't wanna micromanage what you guys are doing. You're doing a great job. But I do like to have all the information. I don't like to be surprised, especially at meetings.
Yeah, we do have a meeting policy that we're not following. Like, I know this is not a regular meeting, but we have a meeting policy for our regular meetings that we were not following, we should be following. And like, one of them was tracking old business and new business, and so things didn't just fall off and you never hear about them again. There's, like, literally, it's in our policies that we have already.
So maybe, a slight policy, I know we can't revise policies right now, and you know how much I love to do that, but, just a review of our current policies so that we know that we're following them, as closely as possible to avoid anything.
Well, if I can, I agree with what Mrs. Viola said. It is in the policy. It's a format issue. Because if you looked at the format over the less than time I've been here, the format has changed several times, to the,
They're about to have the
how the
meetings
chair,
are
yeah,
finished.
how
How the
the-
meetings are done.
yep, because, and that was the
But
the request of the chair, but I get what you, if we wanna go back to that.
If the chair directed you to do something that was in contrary to our meeting policy, I wasn't in the room, I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, that's
But
fine.
I'm just saying that, like, that was, I mean, it was issues like that our policy actually contemplates is, hey, you know, we need to keep track of stuff over time. It's, as bad as our policies are at times, there are actually things that are in there that we could be doing that we're not.
Right, and I think it would have saved us a lot of headache, for quite some time. So is there anything else you wanted to add to the 16th meeting, knowing that we're gonna,
15 or 16?
the 16th?
Okay.
The Tuesday?
I'm not missing centers again. in
Are
kindergarten.
we doing 10 a.m.?
What time?
10? That's okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Y'all
my
need to speak out
preference
of
has
turn.
always been, and that's why I requested a morning meeting, my preference has always been to meet during business
Please.
hours, office hours, so that we're not overpaying our staff, or we're asking everyone to stay much later than they need to, and especially if we're recording these things and people can get to them. And my hope is that if you are at the airport and or employed, that you could come to the meeting in general as professional development or regular scheduled meeting for where you work. So that was my reasoning for choosing
Yeah,
a
I
morning
mean,
meeting on the weekday.
I appreciate that. I mostly agree. I do think that I remember it came up as an issue previously of, you know, staff attending the meeting. On one hand, you want staff to be able to attend the meeting, but if becomes that they can't do their jobs because they're here, that becomes an issue, which was one of the reasons why it was later in the day, so
Right.
staff members could come when they're not on the clock.
I meant, and I should correct myself, I meant not airport staff, but people that, you know, tenants or if they have.
Yeah, it is
interest
easier for
here.
most people to come
That's all I meant.
during business hours. It becomes a little bit more challenging for staff members if they want to attend as private citizens. So, but yeah, I don't have a problem with 10 a.m. Perfect.
So the 16th at 10 a.m. I trust that somebody wrote down the additional things. If not, I'm happy to email over at least what I had said.
Yeah, and to be clear, as far as like putting together the list of current projects that are like major, I would like to see that. I'm not asking for a full briefing memo on every single one of them. Maybe like a paragraph or two describing what it is, where it's at.
And how much and what's the match?
Yeah.
Okay. So So you got that 80/20, how much it is, what's next? That's easy.
All right, we're in a solid 143. How do we feel about concluding today's workshop? Because I feel great about it.
Yeah, and
If
I would
do
just
say so.
like to say thank you for putting up with me. I apologize for getting a little too heated a couple of times. I
It
will
shows
try
that
to
you
do
are
better.
passionate about what you are doing and the reason that you are here, and there is nothing wrong with that. Do we have to formally, I can't do anything, so
No,
can we just
it's a
pack up and
workshop,
head
so
on
we
out?
can, it's a workshop, so there is no
Right.
formal
Adjournment.
adjournment or anything like that. It's a workshop that just is closed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.